That's what I'm talking about. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Arvanauts, to a Tuesday stream. It is 10 minutes to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is day 33 of Adventures in Middle-earth. Wow, 33 days, over a month of Adventures in Middle-earth. Wilderland Adventures, A Darkness in the Marshes. This is sponsored, as always, by Cubicle 7. So thank you to them for their support, and thank you to all of you for being here and being a part of this awesome adventure that we continue on today. Before we get into stuff today, I just want to remind people about a couple of things. First of all, I just remind everybody to, if you have not done so already, please follow the channel. That is always very valuable. Please make sure to follow the stream. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to support the channel by checking out the YouTube, which is !ArvTube, the Steam group, which is the Discord rather, which is !ArvCord. That will let you hang out with the Arvanauts in between streams. !Arv tweets will get you over to my Twitter, where you can follow my Twitter, where I always talk about stuff when I'm going live. Also, !Tweet will let you retweet this stream, and please do that because we want to make sure that we let people know outside of the regular Twitch community about stuff that is going on here. !Arv Shop will get you over to my merchandise area, where you can get Infinity and Beyond material, but you'll also be able to get stuff hopefully for this campaign and for other campaigns coming soon. That is definitely on the docket. We're working on it, but it just takes a while. While we're talking about that, by the way, arvineleron.com. That website is where you can find all things Twitch related to my channel, including information about like the calendar is there, and you can find links to the streams and the Curse of Strahd podcast, which is now in episode 2. Also, a reminder that Speculate at speculatesf.com, that is now an actual play podcast, and the second episode of a Blades in the Dark campaign, or one shot, I should say, that was GM'd by my good friend Mike Underwood, and I was joined by Brandon O'Brien and Valerie Valdez and James Gates. That was all happening over the last couple of weeks, so we got a chance to get that posted. And then let me see, what was I up to? Oh yes, Arv Shop. Arvtreon is the Patreon, which allows you to support what we do here. That really is the financial backbone of the channel. Would love to see that to get $400 and then north of that. Yeah, Blades in the Dark was interesting. It was an interesting system, Brahms. I had a good time with it. And then last but certainly not least, of course, is the subsystem, which is right above the video window. Subbing to the channel is always appreciated. We're up to about 55 or 56 subs right now, so more subs would be really, really helpful. And I would love to be able to get more people in there as we can go on. So, but it's good to see everybody here. Now, we are starting a little bit late today because we had a kind of switch up, which I'll talk about a little bit when I introduce the folks. But there is one other thing that I want to talk about, which is very important, and that is this this little thing that you see right above the screen. And actually, let me just get rid of. Let me get rid of this, and let me get rid of. Let's see. Get rid of this, and let me turn on that. There we go. Yes, and you can see that little Arv is with me. So first of all, welcome. You will notice, as I take it off, that I am wearing my I voted button today because I did. I voted this morning. I've been talking about this the whole way along, and I want to make it clear again. If you have not voted yet, please stop watching this and go vote, okay? There is no more important election, and I don't think I'm being hyperbolic by saying that this may be the most important election ever. That's how important it is that our voice be heard today. If you want to stop what you have seen happening within this country, the horrific stuff that you've seen happening in this country, you need to be heard. And that means you need to get out and use your voice now. Not tomorrow, not next week. You need to use it now. So if you haven't done so already, please check it out. You can find that right here at vote411.org. Vote411.org. If you go to vote411.org, you'll be able to find information about your specific state, your locality, your polling stations, and things like that. Please go do that, folks, because it is really, as much as I love this game and as much as this matters, it isn't quite as important as that. So please make sure you do that. If you've already voted, thank you. Thank you nonstop. But I took my daughter, and we, the entire family, voted today, except for, well, my daughter can't vote, and neither can Mini Arv, my 2-year-old. But they got a chance to see. They actually went with us into the voting areas and got to see that we were voting because it's that important. I'm wearing my Gun Sense voter shirt as well. So please make sure that you do that because it really is that important. Does a Canadian vote help? No, just as long as you're voting in Canada and as long as you're supporting those people who vote here, that really matters. So I'll be talking about this again throughout the session today and over at GOG, but it really is that important. So please go and go vote. All right. That said, I've made these poor people wait long enough as I was talking about voting. So now I'm going to head over and get over to the wonderful Adventures of Middle-earth crew. And so I will unmute them. And now, with no further ado, I will move over to them. Dun, 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 dun. There we go. There is the crew. You can see. I like that they're all sort of frozen in poses that are established well. I love it. It is good to see everybody here. My entire crew, with one exception, is with us, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But we do have with us, starting initially at least, the good person who is giving me. I'm not sure. I'll see what exactly this is. I'm never 100% sure what exactly Trent's going to give me. So I'll just throw it down to him. Trendane Sparks, wonderful voice actor. How are you, sir? How should I interpret your gaze, sir, your demeanor?
Your thinky face emoji.
Yes.
There's a couple of things that have been on my mind today. Okay. One is something happened when I woke up and I could not remember the difference between the definition of sarcastic and sardonic. And I looked them up and I still can't really figure it out. So
love you, Trent.
Yeah, okay, sure. And then Brahms is like, will a Canadian vote help? And I'm like, not with the election, but you probably have a great deal of American friends. I'm sure, Brahms, you have a great deal of American friends. You could always pressure them to go out and vote if they're not going to. And if they still refuse to, don't ever talk to them again.
Right. Make sure you apologize first for doing so, but then be like, I'm really sorry, but don't ever vote again. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And Nonstop and I both voted 2 weeks ago, so huzzah. However, I am wearing my Bare Necessities shirts, Honey, Ants, and Wi-Fi, for the bare necessities of life. And no, I'll cover that at the end of the show, I think, if I remember what I'll be doing soon. Right. Okay. And I'm playing a guy who's very bearish.
You wish.
Kind of, yeah. While I myself am a wolf, but yeah, go whatever. So Tawny Bear, the Hearthminder, a Beorning healer and
pacifist. Tawny Bear necessities.
The Tawny Bear.
Yes.
Oh man, that's why this Beorning can rest at ease. It's a pleasure to have you here, Trent, as always. Moving right on down the line now, Will is not with us today, so one little announcement that I want to make is that Will is going to be not with us for the next month and a half or so. Will is just absolutely overwhelmed with stuff going on his channel. You may know that he's got this whole big thing that he's working out with D&D Beyond and like stuff with WotC and everything, and so he is completely overwhelmed. And rather than just continue to feel bad that he is trying to get to this campaign, which he really, really loves, and then can't do it and feeling terrible about it, he wanted to be able to step back over the next month and a half or so. This is very similar to what we did with Don Cairo coming out of the summer in my Infinity and Beyond campaign, and he rejoined us last week or so and is back on board. So there's certainly precedent for this. And I am looking into other possibilities as well. But in the meantime, it means that we will not have Robar with us. I have a narrative way to explain that. But Will not be with us for the next 3 sessions or so. Well, 4, counting this one, sessions of this show. So be aware of that. Robar should be able to make his return, but he will not be with us today. You should find him over at Encounter Roleplay. Yeah, Don's return was pretty awesome. You can find him over at Encounter Roleplay. You can find Will there. Will's a good dude, and we're definitely looking forward to having him back. But real life has to take precedence, quite obviously. And I guess it has to take precedence. And so we wish Will well, and we will see him back here in the new year. Moving right along down the line, someone that we do not have to worry about being here because she is here with her hat and ready to go, and that, of course, is Terry Toons. Hello, Terry. How is life in the universe, and how are you, and who are you playing?
Well, life in the universe is dark because it's winter time. Well,
cold.
Which means finally Christmas sweets at the stores again. Well, I mean, we had them for a few months, but I'm one of the few people who will be like, no, we can have these all year round. I don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything is fine so far. Successfully finished Inktober, as I already mentioned before while we were setting up. We just nice. And yeah, I don't think I have anything else to tell.
Except who you're
Things
playing.
happening. Hmm?
Except who you're playing.
Nah.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah, you guys will find out. No, I am playing Inge, daughter of Ida. She is a dwarven wanderer, stonemason by profession, and she has a trusty pony sidekick who carries all her things and is invincible.
And is invincible. Oh yeah, and the pony is invincible. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
The pony is invincible.
Yes, the pony which has its own separately movable and trappable token. I mean, is not. That's totally fine. Also, and Inge, of course, recently blew a horn, which was kind of important, and we'll talk about the significance of that horn in just a moment. But always a pleasure to have Terry back with us. You will also, by the way, see Terry. I believe it's not next week, but the week after.
Week I can't,
right. So that's right. So it's the week
grandma's
after.
turning 90.
Yeah, that's right. She's got to go to her grandma's 90th. I mean, that's more important, obviously. So next week, the week after that, though, I believe you will be back with us for Middle Earth, and then the week after that will be you and me with Sagar the Barbarian as we continue our live illustration. So that is the deal with that. Yeah, next Tuesday will be the Chat Chosen Game of the Month, but always a pleasure to have Terry with us. I'm looking forward to seeing what Inge does today. And last but certainly not least, of course, we have at the bottom of the column, but not the bottom of our hearts, Amal. Hello, Amal. How are you? How is life, the universe with you, and who are you playing?
I am okay. I am extremely sleepy. I have recently concluded what felt like roughly 6 million years of travel, but was maybe a little less than that. But yes, it's been good. Things have been good, and I am a tiny bit overwhelmed with things that need to be finished this week. But knock on wood, hopefully those things will get done. And the weather is being very gray and rainy and perfectly acceptable for November, but it really did feel like the daylight savings time kicking in was just wonderful for sleeping in and then terrible for trying to stay awake past 5 p.m. So it's been a little weird. But other than that, things are okay. And I was putting on Twitter that in one tab today, I will be supporting some friends battling the forces of darkness and shadow and evil. And in the other one, I'll be playing Adventures of Middle Earth. So it's really hoping that everyone is able to get to their polling stations and able to cast their ballot and exercise their civic duty and also their right to vote, because it's very strange and freaky to me as a Canadian for whom these things are actually very, very easy to see just how many obstacles are thrown up into people's way, like state by state, and it's really upsetting to me, who am not a citizen of the country. So I just wish you guys all the best and stuff. So I am playing a character called The River, who is a woodsman of Rosgobel. She is a warden with heraldic expression, who, in other words, is a fighty bard, accompanied by her faithful hound, Stone. And presently very concerned about her father, who is trapped in a tower far away, hopefully still alive, but is trying to do her best to make sure that when they go to rescue him, they will have all their available sources brung to bear on the fight.
And it'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. There will be much interesting stuff with backstory and so forth as we move along. All right, well, it is time to recap a little bit about stuff. By the way, those who are wondering about why Little Arv is here during school, it is because it is parent-teacher conferences today and tomorrow. Her mom and I are going tomorrow to deal with the parent-teacher conference, which meant today she got to go with us and vote. So because I live in a state where they don't make it difficult, or at least they try not to. But for everybody, I've been beating this drum for months. It really matters. It matters more than anything has mattered for a long time. So make sure you go and do it. It needs to happen. All right. With that said, let us move forward into a place where victory may be also in the offing. We will see how that goes. So today, the last session that we had was actually the live session that we did at CanCon, which was a lot of fun except for the technical problems, which were numerous, especially relating to internet connections. But next time we'll see. I'm happy to let you all know that we have tremendous internet today, though, and that should be good for all sorts of things as we go forward. The party...
chocolate syrup.
Say again? Well,
Was
maybe.
Barb just drinking straight out of the Hershey syrup bottle.
I mean, yeah.
It looked like she was just.
I wondered whether or not it was why the router wasn't working when I poured it on top of it, but that's what happens. But these fine folks traveled at the request of Radagast to Mountain Hall, where they were supposed to gather some information about a lot of the strange things that have been happening lately, including the darkness which seems to be encroaching upon the Roscabel, and in fact a lot of the area of Wilderland, and which may indeed have had an effect upon, as the aforementioned father of the river. However, when the party got there, they discovered that everything seemed to be relatively normal, sort of, although the trip there was not really that normal. They got to the top and met the head of the head of this place, Heartfast, who suggested some things about stuff he'd had around him. The big issue for him, though, was that he had had local problems, as he put it, issues with goblins that were tunneling closer and closer to his own halls, and he needed to figure out how to deal with them before he was likely to be able to help anybody else. Fortunately, the party was able to win the trust of Heartfast when there was an attack in the night by several goblins who had apparently come out of some secret passage, had ambushed the guardsmen there, and then were trying to make their escape. With a truly epic heroic shot made by Inga, they were able to take down one of those goblins, and as somebody pointed out, also Robar shot. And but they managed to take down this goblin, and unfortunately that goblin was pretty much dead by the time they got to him because it fell from a great height. But in any case, they had managed to, in some ways, sort of blunt the attack and were able to rescue the heavily injured guardsman that had fallen into the river. So they managed to rescue him, and they managed to save him. And as a consequence of their bravery and their actions, Heartfast named them Friends of the House of Mountain Hall, which was symbolized by having Inga herself, who of course has been here before when she traveled here with her parents, go up to the top of Woodland Hall where they kept their greatest treasure, this enormous horn called the Horn of Warning. At the end of our last session, she blew that ancestral horn just before the party was ready to set off on their way south. The information that they gathered from Heartfast was that the place where a lot of the darkness was said to be coming from, and he had heard rumors from both trappers and traders and people coming from that area, was this ancient fortress known as the Dwimmerhorn, which it is said by some moves around within the marshes that lie to the southeast, within the Gladden Fields. And so it says that it moves into different places. And so the party has decided that they are going to go and try to find the Dwimmerhorn, where they can hopefully gather more information about what it is that is bringing this darkness to the lands of Wilderland and how they might be able to stop it. The last thing to note before I mention one thing and then we'll give it back to the party is that there is another person who is joined with them or is offering to join with them, and that is someone named Magric, who is himself a woodman, although he looks as if he may have some elvish blood as well. Very friendly, very cordial, and a very experienced guide who has often gone and visited and traded with the woodmen here at Mountain Hall before. He has offered to bring them down into the Dwimmerhorn, or down to the Dwimmerhorn in the Gladden Fields, as their guide. And that may be fortunate for them because as Tawny and Inga and the river wake up on the morning after the horn has been blown by Inga, ready for their journey to begin, they discover lying by their bed that Robar's bed is empty, and on it is a single folded note. And now I'm going to hand it back over to the party.
Did we all sleep like in the same hall, or how was that?
Yes, in the same hall, I believe, unless you wanted to not do so. But otherwise, I would have had you, I think you were going to be sleeping here, which is where the fires were and the sort of warmth and everything.
Stated in the form of a question?
I believe that's where it was. Yeah, I believe that's where I put you.
Oh, Robar left us kindling. Wait, no!
Do not throw this apart, yeah.
So who's noticing the note first?
I would say all of you notice it, but it's up to whoever wants to do anything about it.
Then Inga is probably gonna pick that up then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Tawny's cooking breakfast for everybody.
Okay, that's good to know. Is this the delicious smell of what is it that you're cooking, Tawny? Like, what's the delicious smell?
Well, right now we're starting with bacon and eggs.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure we're clear. All right. I like it just right now. So
Yeah.
we'll move on to a course of waffles
the
later.
bacon
And,
grease.
yeah, no. yeah,
They're
okay.
the smallest puppets in the world, in Middle Earth.
I love it. Okay, so Inga, when you take the note and open it, you can see what is clearly in Robar's handwriting, just a couple of scribbled sentences, which says, "My friends, sorry, called away on urgent business, dealing with my sister. You know the reason, Inga. Will be return as soon as I can." And then sign Robar. So
Inga is like first like staring at the note like a moment, and then she starts cursing like a sailor, like calling Robo all sorts of names that I'm not gonna say out loud here.
In Dwarvish.
No, like maybe a few Dwarvish ones, but.
it's sort of an international tour of curses, right? Across many races and areas and languages.
Well, I can curse now in like a bunch of languages.
Oh, great.
And with Tawny's tongues of many people, he could probably understand most of them.
Like, he
River
is
starts by
very salty about this.
yeah.
Ugh.
River starts like she's going to ask what it is, and then kind of stops as Inga starts cussing, and then just kind of gets very quiet. Remains quiet, but says nothing until Inga calms down, and then just says, "Is he gone then?"
Apparently, and it's just like still like muffling curses and everything. Like she is just like, I think she crumbles up the note and throws it on the bed basically, and like throws it like somewhere as hard as you can throw crumbled paper. Very hard. Like sit down back on her bed and like was crossed down.
River goes to pick up the paper and slowly kind of uncrumples it so she can read it herself, and reads it out loud for the benefit of Tawny and Magric. Is he there?
Magric is not there. You do not see
Okay.
him yet, just the three of you.
Okay, for Tawny's benefit then. And when she's done, she folds the note up kind of neatly and puts it down and says, "Well, I did think it was a bit much to ask for assistance with my own family matter from people who are beset with their own. So I can't hold this against him."
Well, I can. Like, why would he do that? I mean, I have been like traveling with him like all over the place because of this, and now he leaves me behind. What the hell?
So you're not so much upset that he left, but that he didn't take you with him.
I guess, yeah.
Do you want to go after him, Inga?
I don't know where he went. Like, I have maybe an idea, but also we have like pretty urgent matters to attend to, and
Perhaps it's for the best. There is so much to do over so much ground, and perhaps it's for the best that he is pursuing his own matter, and our paths will cross again soon. And maybe we'll have done... No, never mind. I can't even finish this thought. I wish him well.
It's the bacon, isn't it?
It's true. The bacon is very distracting. Can I have some? Is it ready yet?
It smells very good, by the way.
That batch over there is ready, yes.
Oh,
well, I tell you one thing. Like, Inga points like straight at River's face, basically. If by the next time we see him, he's still alive, I'm gonna kill him. Like,
Well, I mean, maybe next time we'll see him by a river, and you won't actually have to.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pick him up and throw him.
At this, Magric comes into the hall, clapping his hands, his face shining. "Oh, something smells delicious in here. I could smell bacon from several leagues off." And he looks over and he says, "Well, you all look... Whoa." And he sort of catches sight of Inga's and the river's expression. And I suppose Tani, although Tani is somewhere in the middle of that, like also interested in his breakfast. So, but he sort of catches the Inga and the river and sort of says, "Oh, and perhaps I've caught you all at a bad time. Where's Robar?"
He has been urgently called away by other business, and so we will continue together without him. For now.
And he nods slowly and he says, I see. Well, strange are the ways of the Dunedain, it is said. Well, fortunately for all of you, you've got what I'd like to think is an excellent guide in me. I will do everything I possibly can, although I can't possibly live up to great standards of a Dunedain warrior, but, well, at least I might be more, cheerful. He seemed a little down in the mouth sometimes, but perhaps I don't know him well, though.
Well, I mean, if you can manage to, like, not abandon us out of nowhere, then I think you will do better than him. So.
And he sort of nods, kind of, seems like his brow furrowed, like, okay, type of thing. He says, well, then, before we're on our way, I suppose there's more bacon that needs to be had. Is there an extra slice or two left for a straggler, my friend?
How crispy do you want it?
He says, extra crispy, as the creator intended it.
Then it'll be a few more minutes.
And as you see that, you see the voice of the lore master gradually recede when he clearly took it over because I like me my extra crispy. Anyway,
what is the point? This is not River, this is me just going, what is the point of extra crispy bacon? Why?
It's so good. Otherwise, it's just chewy and junky. No, it's delicious. It's crisp. And it's
the chewiness, is it a component?
No, it's too chewy. I don't want to chew fat. It's crispy. Chow. Well, bam. It hits you like bam in the taste bud with a pow. An uppercut. Oh, man. I love me some crispy bacon. Anyway, this battle will not be solved here.
No, it won't.
Exactly, Deroy. Like, ba-bam. That's the crisp that I'm talking about. Like, when you wouldn't vote today, you're like, stop fascism. Ba-bam. That's what I'm talking about. That's what it was like. Every time I eat extra crispy, it's like I'm stopping fascism. Anyway, I don't know how I got there.
I voted today, just like crispy bacon. It's, what?
How did the vote go? Well, I had extra crispy bacon. What are you talking about? It's like it's an inside joke. Anyway.
Sounds like originally like one of those campaign slogans like one of the parties here would use. Like we have like one party just called The Party. And like they come from a satirical like magazine, like political satire. It's what they do. Like they started their own party at like their
really
like nonsense like that.
Nice, exactly. Well, that's what it's about. The extra crispy bacon party.
Just pointing that out.
That is true. Whenever they do the UK returns and they show the guy, like they'll have like the one guy from the silly party, and they actually have him standing on stage next to the very serious, like Labor's there, Conservative Party, whatever. And then you've got silly guy with this crazy hat, and they actually read out his name. They're like, and Sir Joan Duncan Smith from the silly party. Anyway. It's good times. All right, so you all enjoy a pleasant breakfast that I assume involves besides the extra crispy bacon. What else we talking about? We got the eggs. What else?
Some eggs. There's like a couple of honey cakes in there.
I'm hearing a whisper of hash browns? ?
Well,
hash browns for breakfast.
The problem is they couldn't really find me a pan to make hash browns. They brought me a kettle.
Okay.
So I was forced to clump the hash browns together and make tater tots.
All right, she approves of tater tots. That's a big nodding.
This is fine.
That's what I'm talking about.
River is feeding strips of bacon to Stone as well, and looking quite just withdrawn and sad, but scratching him behind the ears nevertheless.
remember-
Stone would be sort of reflecting that mood, except that he also is crunching loudly through the awesome crispy bacon that you've given him.
No, Stone
Crunch,
does not like
crunch.
crisp bacon because he
boy, good
prefers the chewiness of actual flesh, and that is.
What a good boy, best boy.
Best boy.
Fortunately, Tawny made an array of bacon.
Because Tawny is wonderful and an excellent host in all situations.
I like the
Now-
idea that he has a whole short order like grill in front of him with like just arrayed like all things
all in one pot.
all in one pot.
But,
Yeah.
but for anybody who has a point of exhaustion, the honey cakes alleviate 1 point
Oh,
of
sweet.
exhaustion.
Do we have points of exhaustion yet? I don't think we do.
I
Cure shadow
thought somebody did. No, it doesn't cure shadows.
I don't know if anyone has that. There's Inga has 6 shadow, Robar's got 4 shadow, the river has 4 shadow. I don't think
what does
anybody
the
had
foreshadowing-
exhaustion.
As I was going to say, I was waiting for
Foreshadow.
someone to bring up foreshadowing.
Yeah, they have 4 shadow, Inga.
Oh.
Ha
No, it is not.
Try the
Inga.
crispy bacon. I'll be here all week.
It is not Inga.
I know. I had to make the joke.
Inge.
I know,
It's
Inga. I know. It's the only way I could make the foreshadowing joke. Anyway, so they eat. You eat well, and prepare yourselves. You do not catch sight of Heartfast, but Magric says, "Yes, my friends. Well, the morning is getting on. If we want to be able to make some good progress, I would suggest that we set out as soon as may be. I expect that we should have some easy travel for a time, but things will get difficult when we get closer to the Gladden Fields."
Yes. Let's be on our way.
And, okay, so you set off. I'm going to bring you over from the Harrowed Hall over to our map. Now, the map that, and you folks will have to drag your tokens back down onto it. The good news is you won't have to manage anybody else's time. It'll just be yours. Yeah, that was cute though. Inga's like, I'm right here. See, look, it's right next to us. I said, what? So you start up here. Now, the path that has been suggested for all of you by Magric is this way, which is moving slightly to the east, as you can see right here, and then going south, more or less through the West Anduin Vales, but trying to give that wooded area somewhat of a wide berth, if you can, for reasons you already knew when you came here. Then getting onto, or next to anyway, the River Gladden, and then crossing it about maybe a third of the way into the marsh, crossing over it, and then heading south the rest of the way to where he hopes the Dwimmerhorn will be found. When you ask him about this notion of the fact that the Dwimmerhorn moves around from place to place, he kind of laughs and talks about superstition. But you notice that he doesn't... Say again?
And Castlevania.
And Castlevania. But he does not... Exactly. But he doesn't... He says that's nonsense. That would never actually happen. He says it's a terrible night for a curse. And then he did... I know. But he says the problem is if I'm going... He says that he doesn't answer the question really. Like he sort of laughs it off, but he doesn't completely answer the question of, okay, so then there really isn't any, right? Like movement of the place. Like he doesn't really say anything about that. So either way, it's somewhere in the Gladden Fields apparently. But the first goal here is going to be to skirt the foothills of the mountains for a while to the south and then east. So you're going to be heading south for a while and then east after that. So for this one, Magric is going to serve as your guide, so you've got that covered. However, you still need to deal with a lookout, a hunter, and a scout. Now, previously, Inga has been the scout, the River's been lookout, and Tawny has been the hunter. You can stay with that if you like, but it's up to you as to whether you want to do that or not.
Also, I wanted to ask if we can, while we are still at Mountain Hall, can like restock on like provisions and ammunition and stuff like that.
Yes, especially since you find that all the people are very friendly to you, Inga, and they're friendly to all of you, but in particular to you. They seem to be aware not only that you blew the horn, which is a big deal, but that you killed the goblin last night, and so a lot of them seem to think of you as particularly. You get a lot of slaps on the back and people sort of like kind of punching in the shoulder like good job and that kind of thing. You notice that
and they fly all across the hall.
You notice when you come over to You notice when you come over to Lillimon, you notice that he's not really. He seems to be kind of like shy shying away from you a little bit. You don't know why until you look over and you see that someone has placed a bag that is filled with tons of lumps of sugar around his nose. Like way more than any pony should have.
My pony.
Yeah, like you can tell that someone did this. Like it's a really nice leather bag too. So when you sort of remove it from his nose, you can see he's kind of like sort of is kind of like he was enjoying, like, who knows how many lumps of sugar he actually had before you finally got to him. But oh man,
sugar shock pony.
Yeah, he was. So he's in a lot of energy, and he'll have that for about an hour.
There's a pie joke in here.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But anyway, so he seems really good. So everyone is very happy with you, and you're able to stock up both provisions, also arrows. You're able to stock up on as well, and things of that nature.
To ask actually about that. Like,
sure.
I've noticed like throughout the entire game we've been playing, like there was like never a point of like, oh, do we have enough food on us? Do we have enough ammo on us?
Right.
So I'm assuming at this point it's like you are just assuming we have enough, unless it's like, oh, we are like stuck in the desert.
Exactly, or if you're, or like when you were in the dungeons of Dol Guldur, yes, that the basically because generally the sort of exhaustion takes into account. That's why you have a hunter. So you need the hunter to be able to hunt for food during journeys and things like that. But the most of the time, unless you're going to be gone for a long time, I am actually vaguely calculating it in the sense that if you were away from a sanctuary for a month plus, this would become a major issue, especially the ammo. But other than that, I assume you're able to retrieve some of the arrows and so forth as we go along. So, yeah.
Well, and Inge can just like make new arrows if taken time, like.
Right. But then you would have to sort of, but that would have to be accounted for in how you do things. But yes.
So I'm just like wondering if we have like an appropriate stop that we automatically restock on these things.
Generally is what I assume. Yes.
Like, I don't want
that's
to
right.
like click away like
generally
one
I
arrow
assume
every time from my inventory.
Well, right, and that by the way is the other thing, because I have never played in 30 plus years a game where it was more fun when you were forced to keep track of food.
How about we calculate inventory weight?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, the excitement compels you. 3.5. I'm just kidding. I'm joking, Pathfinder. I'm joking. Totally joking.
Okay,
You are encumbered.
Exactly. Okay, so you're prepared to set off on your way. Now, what I'm going to ask is, I'm going to have Magric as your guide, but I'm going to need one of you to make the embarkation roll. And the embarkation roll is the roll that you do, remember, when you first set off on a journey.
No, I mean, like, what is it, like a specific stat, skill, whatever? Related?
Yes. So normally the guide would roll and then would add to it. It's normally a 1d8, but then they add to it there. Hold on a second, once I get the right statistic. They add to it there.
Their armor class.
Yeah, no. That is not what they do.
Oh, by the way, speaking of armor class, my armor class is still glitching out. I can't change it, so it's still too low. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that has been like a thing for a while, but like we hadn't like any point lately where that was relevant. So.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Basically what it is the guide's survival proficiency bonus plus half their wisdom bonus minus the peril rating. So in this case, because you are being assisted by Magric, what you'll be doing is you will be rolling a 1d12, whoever chooses to do this, that will be modified by your survival and your wisdom bonus. And then I will tell you about the peril rating. So what I would suggest is you look for your wisdom bonus and your survival and decide which of you would be best suited to do the
It sounds like that would
roll.
be Tawny. My wisdom is 3 plus, and then survival is 5. But
Mine is 4 plus 6. So.
What is the wisdom bonus?
oh,
Yeah,
Yes.
probably me then.
What does that mean? I don't.
bonus.
What is-
Bonus.
These
Plus
extra
0
points.
is still like 0, right?
Yeah, it doesn't, okay, so we've got so Tanya's going to do this. So we're looking at, you're going to be rolling a 1d12. You're going to be adding your survival proficiency plus half of your wisdom, Tani, and then you're going to subtract from it 2, which is the peril of this journey.
1d8.
No, 1d12.
1d12 plus 8 minus 2, so 1d12 plus 6.
Plus 6, and last, Magric is helping you, so an additional 2.
So 1d6 plus 1d12 plus 8. Man, this
Yeah.
is why math and I have not been on speed.
Sorry, it's 1d12 plus 8 plus 2? Or...
Well, it would be 1d12 plus 8 minus 2 because of the para
gotcha.
rating, but plus 2 because
Right.
of...
I thought, so one, okay, gotcha.
So basically just 1d12 plus 8.
Okay.
Wow.
Bang!
Damn. Wow. All right.
Sweet.
All good things happen to you. Okay.
Let's just go back.
Okay. This is the thing that's important about that. You set it upon a path which will show you wonders long since forgotten, and you can see Magric has this. He sort of, as you stride out and see the land beyond, you can see it is a clear and cold day, but the sun is rising, and he says, "You see, my friends, whenever the sun rises upon the beginning of a journey, it stays with us even through the darkness to come." And he sort of strides forward happily. The auspices are good, and if the company is true, you will surely prevail. What this means mechanically is that I will be adding 2 to the rolls on the journey events table, which is a good thing. And rolls made, this is what I would like you folks to note, rolls made to determine the initial outcome of these encounters. So not every check, but when you encounter something, and then you have a certain, like, either it's a combat roll or something like that. The first time you interact with them in some way, you will make that roll with advantage during this journey because of this beginning.
Have we still got advantage on survival checks or?
No. This is not since you've arrived here, because now you're on another stage that, yeah.
Gotcha.
But you do have advantage now on this other advantage thing, so that works out. So good stuff. Well done. Clearly a better guard already. No, I've guide already. I'm just kidding. Okay.
Spell is gone.
Totally joking. Okay. Yes, unfortunately, but it got you there, which was good. Okay, so you begin to set off and head to the south, and I am going to pull up my handy dandy dice roller for this
Wait,
one.
just 1 second. Sorry.
Sure.
My notes had the advantage on survival check as adventure long, but it's not, right? It was just up until we...
No, up until up until the time that you reach the mountain hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That was departure from Roscabel, right?
Gotcha.
Yes, correct. Yeah, from
Okay.
Roscabel
What about
all the
the
way
advantage
through.
on checks until failure? That seemed like a different thing.
No, that was the one I meant. The advantage on checks until failure was the Blessing of Radagast.
Right, and the Blessing of Radagast only lasts until the mountain hall arrival. Yeah.
Okay, so those 2 things are gone.
Yeah. Now replaced by this other advantage thing that you now have.
Okay.
Okay. So okay. So this will be like okay. All right. So we'll start this way. Okay. Okay. So something interesting has occurred.
I really love still seeing that D12 on the board. It's just...
Yeah, it just makes you feel all warm inside, right?
It really does, especially because it's like a honey gold die. Just, one line away from being a hexagonal side even. And it's just like, blessed with all the honey from Tawny Bear's hives is this roll. It's just...
That's why I chose that color.
You get to choose the color?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Mine are just always default purple. Can I change that?
Mm-hmm.
What?
If you click on the color square next to your name
Oh,
at the bottom.
I see. Oh my god, my life is changing. Oh, this is so great. I could make it blue. I mean, I like the purple. The purple is fine, but it could be blue.
Should be blue.
Okay.
Oh, does that mean I have to change from green to like burgundy?
No.
No, you don't have to change.
No, I'm
anything.
just like wondering because of like character colors, because like you have now like.
Oh, I see. I just love
Yeah.
blue in general. I mean, blue is my favorite color, bar none. And I am not even picky about it. I am a little bit, but
Mine swap between blue and green. Really deep, rich emerald green and a nice, rich royal blue. Yeah, I love
I love me some saturated colors.
Okay, so you set off to the south, and for a couple of days, actually, your journey is relatively uneventful. Magric proves to be a delightful companion. He's got a great sense of humor, and he tends to regale you with stories of journeys that didn't go quite the way that were intended, of people filled with hubris, dark stories of the death of kings and things of this kind, all sorts of different enjoyable tales as you set off to the south. But upon the evening, or towards the evening of the second day, right around here, as you are traveling downwards, you see yourselves, the land is beginning to rise slightly. And you notice ahead of you what looks like a bunch of stone ruins of some kind, and the path looks like it's going to go right past it. And Magric sort of stops and grins and looks back at all of you and points and says, "Ah, something I think worth taking a look at, perhaps. Perhaps some family history, eh?" And he kind of gives you a wink, Inga. And you can see that on the top of this hill, this looks to be possibly dwarven stonework that you're looking at.
Is there any chance that Inga might have traveled past this ruin before, or is this like past, like, is this
Not
like
likely she would have gone this far south.
usual pathway that anybody
Right,
would
yeah, not likely. She would have gone back north to the east, east and north, not south, in all likelihood. And if so, if you did ever go there, you wouldn't have remembered it, at least at this age. You don't remember anything like this. And so you see these ruins upon the top of this hill that your path is passing by.
Okay, so, I mean, we can go check it out if you guys want to. And, like, looks at the rest of the gang.
River looks towards the continuing path and is kind of clearly calculating the delays and stuff like that, but says just, well, if it won't take long.
So this is on a hill, the ruins, right?
Correct. Just a small rise, really, not like a huge.
So, like, I'm just like thinking if we would get up there, we might get like a better view over the upcoming area,
Yep.
like basically.
That's true.
So, like, Inga turns then to River. This might be useful for like getting a better look on what's ahead of us. So, should be worth it for that.
Let's do it.
So you head upwards up the hill, and as you get up to this place, you can see that this is a ruin indeed. It's not a huge ruin, but if you had to guess, Inga, this is probably some ancient dwarven way station. You can see that the stonework is still sharp. In fact, for a ruin, it's not all that ruined, and it sort of passes through your mind about how long it takes for the work of men to basically collapse, and how much longer dwarven work usually lasts. And you can tell yourself that the stones fit perfectly, and it's masterfully good stonework that you appreciate, and are sort of feel a sense of pride about it, I would say. The woodwork on the outside is long gone, and there is blue-green lichen which is covering everything, sort of in this sort of
like
light.
moss, right?
Yeah, exactly, like a light covering of moss. And as you sort of look around, and all of you are sort of looking around this area, you wonder whether this is a reminder of enduring craftsmanship, of the pride that I mentioned, or the slow decline of all things. And Magric sort of looks up at some of the still standing stonework and shakes his head in admiration and says, "It's amazing, absolutely amazing what the dwarves are able to do. And yet I wonder how long it'll take before this too finally falls to its foundations. What are you thinking? To the dawn of time? Or beyond the end of it?" And he kind of looks over his shoulder at you.
Inga just like looks like really thinking really hard about that because she's not that smart. Just like goes, well, either way, neither of us is gonna find out, aren't we?
And he nods and he says, "It's true."
Sorry, go on.
No, he nods and says, "That's true. That's true." Go ahead, River.
River says, why think that it will continue to decay? Perhaps someone will come and rebuild on these foundations. People do that.
and he sort of pushes experimentally on one of the walls, and then kind of leans back carefully to make sure that it's still stable and strong. And then he nods, and he folds his arms, and he looks over at you, Tawny, and he says, "Indeed. And what would the Bjornings say of something like this, my friend? Would they be interested in long-lasting stonework, or would you prefer to stay with your honey cakes and the natural world around you?"
In my experience, honey cakes don't.
And he's gone.
No.
He says, "Oh no, what about the honey cakes? I'll never know." No. Sorry, you were saying in your experience.
Oh, did you not? I guess you didn't hear that.
No, I didn't hear
From my
that.
side-
You
From my
froze.
side, it didn't. Nothing happened.
Oh yeah, you froze.
Yeah. So Tawny's like,
In my experience, honey cakes don't tend to last very long at all.
And he nods. He says, "I can see why, with as delicious as yours are, of course." He says, "But I'm asking something more important, though, about, do you think we simply renew ourselves every day until the time comes when we can't anymore? Or should we build lasting monuments to our pride, or perhaps our hubris?" And he kind of taps the wall behind him.
Seems to me you're asking about two very different things. You know, we ourselves are not just recreated every day. We are reforged by every new experience. It is our nature to change and endure at the same time. But the things that, at least in my experience with the Beornings and to some extent with halflings, things are made to endure. Things are made to endure. And we as people are made to endure through change.
And he nods, and he sort of looks thoughtful. He rubs his wrists a little bit and says, "Interesting. Interesting to think that some of us can endure in the way you say, and yet change at the same time." Okay. As you were all sort of looking around, I would like all of you to make a wisdom check here as you think about, and you will be doing this at advantage again, as
check,
I said.
not throw.
Not a saving throw. This is a wisdom check as you are thinking about what you feel about this question of whether things endure or pass, whether they can be reborn and recreated or survive.
Inge completely spaced out during the conversation.
He's like, okay. Okay.
Oh, I
So
love my
let's
blue
see.
dice. Even though they gave me a terrible roll, but they're so pretty.
They are definitely pretty. Let's see. Okay. So, as you were sort of looking around, both Tawny and the river, Tawny, you are sort of at the same time kind of amused by the thought that these things would be considered to be more important and lasting, let's say, than the natural world. And yet, at the same time, you feel a certain amount of understanding of trying to build something as a bulwark against the elements, as your cakes are a bulwark against decay and hunger and disease. And as you imagine this, you feel yourself kind of filled with things could be worse, really. And you are filled with inspiration in your struggle against the shadow. You as well, the river, as you sort of look around, have this feeling of hope in a way. Your words of rebuilding really stick with you. The idea of someone being able to come back and build upon the foundation that is here, that has been built by the dwarves, fills you also with an inspiration to continue. And so you have inspiration. In some ways, though, Inga, as much as you'd like to think that, these things will last, it does trouble you that the woodwork is gone. It does trouble you a little bit that there's not as much, that despite the stone being here, that your people have not remained within it. And so that, plus the fact that you spaced during the conversation, means that you don't really experience the same feeling as the others. And yet, nonetheless, there is something reassuring about the feel of these strong walls that seem impossible to knock down or destroy even after centuries. And so you gain no shadow, but you also gain no inspiration from this either. You are sort of neutrally considering what this means. And Magric pushes himself off the wall and then kind of says, well, he says, at the very least, there's something else this gives us, and that's a better view. And he points, and you can see way in the distance, because you're still probably about only here, so you're about midway through. Way in the distance to the south, you can see a thin black mark moving through the land. And he says, that is the River Gladden. If all goes well, we should be there in the next couple of days, perhaps a day at most, perhaps a day if we're lucky. And then it'll be a matter of crossing over it. I hope at that time we will have the chance to, well, test our mettle. The trip will get more difficult from there. We could make camp here if you wish, or press on for another hour. I know you, and he glances over at you, River, have a desire for us to move more quickly. But I would give us the choice to you as to whether you wish to rest safe within these walls or push further.
Test our metal, you say?
And he nods. He says, yes, exactly so. And he kind of like, he flicks the blade. Ding.
River looks to the others and says, I would be guided by your experience in these places. If it makes more sense for our ultimate destination to be rested an hour more than to press on an hour more, then let us rest here. And perhaps whatever strength the people who built this place put into the stone might seep into us and help us as we move on.
Okay, and Magric looks expectantly at Tani and Inga.
Well, I mean, this is about as good as a cover we are going to get in this area, I suppose. Also, like, being on top of a hill is always a good vantage point to have, so absolutely.
All right, so then in that case, you set up camp, and a small campfire, small but cheery, warms your hands and your hearts as you sit around it and tell tales. Next to you, River Stone slumbers quietly, occasionally dream barking a little bit, presumably chasing squirrels, as you know he occasionally loves to do. And Lillimon continues to look longingly over at the leather bag that you have carefully placed out of his reach after giving him 2 more lumps of sugar, which is still filled. I mean, they must have given him like 100 lumps of sugar. Like, you're not sure you've seen that much sugar in a bag before.
Where is this sugar coming from? Oh no, I shouldn't ask that question.
Yeah,
of Middle Earth.
Yeah, he, you know, I don't know.
They have corn and potatoes in this world, so
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, it certainly does not look like sugar, like nice square packets. In case we're you know, clear, it's not.
Probably what we call Candice in German. That's like large sugar crystals that are usually like brown.
Yeah, that's what I was imagining. Yep. So they're there, and the sky is clear overhead. And at one point, before all of you start heading off to bed, yes.
Is this a short rest?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. I was just wondering if I as you know how I've got like campfire tales, which during a short rest, you and any nearby friendly creatures gain an additional 1d6 hit points per hit die spent.
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to just remind me of the mechanics of how that works? Like...
I'd be happy to do that. Although you, at the moment, I have you at maximum hit points anyway, though.
Oh,
but,
okay. Right.
But I mean,
I just sorry. I thought it was like you gain an extra die as opposed to.
No, I don't think so. I think you just
That's
have
more like to recover from wounds. Okay.
Yeah, you have access to another die if you need it,
Gotcha.
but it's not like
Okay.
it does not give you temporary points, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
Like before, like we set off again, you said, Inga would like to take the last shift and just like have a throughout look on like the surrounding area and like on ahead if she can spot anything of interest, because she's a scout and everything. So.
Okay. During that last shift, Inga, you hear in the distance off to the southeast, you hear this long plaintive howl. Probably the howl of many, many miles away. Probably the howl of a wolf. But what's odd about it is that it is a single howl, like it's a single, like one, not a whole group. And as the howl is sort of dying away, you suddenly see, slightly startlingly, or hear startlingly, like right next to your shoulder, you hear Magrick's voice. And you sort of turn and see him standing right next to you. His eyes are shining, reflecting the bright moonlight above as he looks down towards in the direction of the howl, and he says, "Ah, apparently the ghost wolf hunts again. Have you heard that story before, Inga?"
I don't think so, no. Ghost Wolf?
It is said that some time ago, many, many centuries ago, some of the men who first settled this place domesticated wolves and kept them for their own. And one of these great wolves, the greatest of all of them, was, for this person, this chieftain, was his constant companion. Then, one day, that chieftain, it is said, was betrayed, stabbed in the back by one of his own lieutenants, and they, to make sure that there would be no chance of vengeance, killed the wolf at the same time. Well, according to the story, ever after, the one who had killed the chieftain was haunted by the howling of the ghost wolf. Ever it would occupy him in the deepest dungeon or at the highest mountain, he would hear this howl, and eventually it became so piercing, so loud, and so impossible to ignore that he ended his life rather than hear it anymore. And then he smiled and he looks at you and says, "Of course it's just a story, and probably just a single wolf, but I like to think of the ghost wolf wandering around and seeking out, well," he rubs his wrist and then the back of his neck, "injustice, maybe, wherever it can be found."
That's quite a story.
He nods. "He was quite a wolf."
Or still is, apparently. So,
And he nods and he says, "Yes, well," and he looks up at the walls again, and he says, "He's many miles away, and safe here within these walls. I don't think we have anything to worry about. Besides, I imagine that axe of yours has done its share of eliminating animals, dangerous and otherwise. Presumably wolves could enter that equation if need be."
well, I don't know if it can cut through ghosts, but maybe we'll find out.
And he nods and he says, "Ah, Inga, remember, ghosts are simply a figment of dreams. What matters are the real. It is the real threats you must concern yourself with."
So,
And he kind
as
of
soon
puts
as
a
he
hand
said-
on his shoulder.
As soon as he says figment of dreams, like Inge has like a flashback to what happened in the ruins
Yep.
during that dream sequence, and she just like goes like, she looks like she's seen a ghost, basically.
Yeah, he at that point is turned away, sort of just puts a hand on your shoulder, in a friendly way, and doesn't notice. But as he sort of looks over his shoulder towards you, he says, "All right, well, it'll be the last shift soon, or be the ending of the last shift soon. The sun should be rising. I'm going to gather a little bit of things that we need. After that, it will be up to you, to the rest of you to get on the move again." And he says, "Keep your axe close by, though, Inga. Although the wolf may not be a threat to us, there are other things in this land, physical things, that could be a risk." And with that, he kind of smiles again and walks away. Okay. The next day arrives, and you set out again and head south again as you are heading towards this river, towards the River Gladden. And as you get closer to the River Gladden, you are sort of making your way down that direction. And although most of the time things will be like cloudy to begin with or foggy to begin with, and then will gradually lift over time as the sun gets higher. But this seems to be the opposite. As you get closer to the river, not your river, but this river, as you get closer to this river, a thick fog descends. And so thick, in fact, that it's difficult for any of you to see. You can feel sort of the chill of it around you, not an unearthly or deadly chill, but you can feel the chill of the fog around you. And as you are passing forward, it becomes so difficult that you can actually see that it's sort of difficult to keep the animals close by. River, you can sort of hear Stone occasionally whimpering, even though he's pretty close to your side. And Lillimon, trailing along behind you, is completely invisible on the end of his rein, Inga. So he's, like you can hold the reins, but then it just disappears into what looks like a fog bank, basically. As he continues to move forward, as all of you continue to move towards the river, Magric at one point shakes his head and says, this doesn't feel like... It's been a long time since I've been through fog this thick. And he says, make sure you're careful about the animals. Any kind of... And as he says, any kind of, you hear this sort of whinny and then a small cry, and suddenly the reins are yanked out of your hand, Inga, and vanish into the fog.
Inga's like, Lilliman! And turns around and tries to get to him.
And Magric turns immediately and says, what happened?
Inga's just trying to get to Lilliman and not really paying attention.
Yep. So, as you walk forward, I'm going to need you, please, to make a dexterity saving throw.
Just Inga?
Just Inga. Yep.
Okay.
And I'll explain why in a second.
River, meanwhile, just kind of buries her hand in the scruff of Stone's fur,
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah,
don't do that.
Yeah. That's sort of the panic of I can't go now. So you find your foot is literally over air for a moment, and then you pull your foot back, you're like ah, and you can hear the sound of Lilliman sort of whinnying a little bit, but it sounds like it's coming from below you and directly in front, maybe 3 or 4 feet down from where you are.
What?
So Inga basically drops to her knees and tries to feel what's going on down with the ground.
There is air down below you. You can feel like you're at the edge of some fall. Now, whether it's a cliff, it may not be a cliff, but it's the end of some, like a quick drop, basically.
But wait, wasn't Lillimon behind her?
Yes. Yes,
so...
but Lillimon was off to the side. So when apparently Lilliman, you don't know yet, but apparently Lillimon may have stumbled into this little mini ravine, which is actually described even in the area of Rivendell when that happens about these little ravines. But it's this little ravine. You can hear Lillimon pretty close to you, Inga. He's not like he's plummeting down this huge chasm.
No, he is. I can hear him whinnying.
You can hear him whinnying. He doesn't seem to be whinnying in pain, but maybe a little bit of fear and pain, possibly. And he seems to be right below you, but you can't get down to it. You can't feel him just by on the edge and feeling down with your hand.
Inga's turning around, putting her head back at the go, going Tony Bear, I need your help.
Where are you?
Yeah, you're gonna say you hear Inga's sound. Yeah, okay, all right.
Hello. I'm over here.
Let's not get separated.
Watch your step.
Everybody.
There is a drop here somewhere.
Huh.
So be careful with where you're stepping at.
Everyone come over here so we don't get separated.
And Magric joins up with you and says, it's wise advice. All right, we're all here together. Is Stone here too? And he kind of looks over and sees. He nods. So he says, all right, very well then. Where and he can just barely see apparently the back of you, Inga, if you had to guess. And he's like, all right, I can see her leg anyway. So he kind of cautiously moves up. And Tani, if you want, you could cautiously move up next to her on the other side. And you can see that she's reaching down basically reaching into fog also. But she is feeling around for something.
So as soon as Inga notices the others behind her, she's like, somebody hand me a rope. You have to let me down this drop, whatever, how deep it is. I think Lilliman fell in it.
Okay. So if we have rope, right?
Yeah,
it's not
Sure.
on Lilliman. Okay.
Well, Inga, her rope is on Lilliman. That's
Her rope is, yeah.
Okay. So River says, Tawny, do you want to stay here and be the anchor? And exactly. Like the way that we pulled on the river, basically. That's just lower Inga. So like river will come up and hand you rope.
And
so Inga just like knots it around her waist, and as soon as like everybody looks ready, she would like start climbing.
Although, does it make sense for Inga to be the one who goes down?
It's her pony. If it's like
I know it's her pony.
She would be the one able to like most likely calm.
Okay, cool.
Also, she's not really thinking right now.
Yeah.
So, Tawny will, taking the rope, he'll both act as the anchor himself, plus he will drive a piton into the ground to help secure it as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one thing about the land, which is a little odd, is that the land here is mostly like sod, strong sod and soil and dirt and all that. But there is, if you've ever spent any time in New England, you will know that the land of New England is erratically rocky. So there's a lot of dirt that all of a sudden stone. And that's kind of what, not Stone the dog, stone. And so that's what this is, where you are sort of driving it in, and several times you feel sort of resistance to the piton, Tawny, because you're like right up against whatever the heck this like rock face is. But you're able to drive it in, you think, enough to be able to hold.
He's also holding it himself.
Right. No, I know. Yep. Okay, so who's
Inga
clambering down? Inga and Magric says, I'll happily go down if you need me to.
Inga's like basically already like starting to climb down by the
He says, well, wait. Someone else has to go with you.
I'll go. I'm I think lighter and easier to pull up probably.
And he steps back and he says, all right. Be careful as you go, though.
Keep an eye on Stone. Stone, stay with Tawny. Okay. And
Stone whimpers like with his head over the side. Okay. So Inga's on the way
not
down.
For dogs.
Okay. Stone takes a paw, like grabs it around. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so Inga begins to descend, and then you follow thereafter. You want to be on there pretty much soon after she starts to descend, right? Okay. So you don't actually have to go all that far down. It's probably not much farther than maybe 10 or 11 feet before you find yourself on the ground. However,
what is that in metrics?
that would be
3 meters.
Yeah, 30
Wait,
meters.
sorry,
right?
how many feet did you say?
It's 3 meters. It's 3 feet to a meter, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be about a little over 3 meters. So when you touch down on the stone below, you can feel that there's like a lot of like pebbles and shale and gravel apparently on the ground. Like it's a little slippery even as you kind of position yourself. And then you quickly see and hear the river coming down above you. So if you move out of the way. And you still don't see Lillimon there, but you hear his whinnying a little bit farther away from you, but this time on the same level as you through the fog.
So Inga is like basically, as soon as she comes down, she's like, Lillimon, like calling for him.
Mm-hmm. And
as soon as she located him,
she just you hear this like slightly into the fog.
Okay, so like Inga is like waiting impatiently for River to come down and like help her, and then like basically.
Yeah. So once River is down there, she'll let Inga take point unless it seems like Inga's about to do something particularly dangerous.
Is the fog down here too, or is it like clearer down here?
There is fog down here too.
I think fog tends to be sinky, right?
Yep,
like
that's it.
Dark. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, so like Inga says to River, here, hold on to the rope, don't let go, and starts going.
Okay, so you step forward again. There's like gravel and so forth, and then after about maybe a good 8 or 9, maybe 10 more feet, so another 3 meters or so, you suddenly see Lillimon's nose kind of looming up out of the fog, and then you come across and you can see that Lillimon is there. He looks fine almost, but you can see that his front is a little lower than his back, and as you look you can see that he's kind of down a little bit on one leg, and his left front hoof seems to be bothering him. Like he's kind of picking it up and putting it down, and then he kind of, whinnies a little bit. And the rest of his legs seem okay, from what you can tell. But he seems to be whinnying a little bit and kind of, wincing.
As I mentioned in the beginning of the stream, he's invincible, so he cannot be possibly damaged, hurt in any way.
He might have rocks in his hooves though, right?
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, when Inga finds him, she goes up to him and pats his head and is like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?"
And he nuzzles you.
Where he's hurting or why,
Yep, and he nuzzles you, and again, you can see as I mentioned, you can see that he's sort of favoring his left hoof.
Have you got him, Inga?
I think, yeah, I do. He's here, but something seems to be wrong with one of his front hooves. So
okay.
Inga just kneels down.
River's gonna follow the rope over to Inga.
Okay.
And take a look.
Okay.
As well.
You find him there, and as I described, he seems to be favoring his left hoof. He doesn't look to be in agonizing pain, but he definitely seems to be bothered by something in his hoof.
Yeah, well, Inga has a look of what there is going on.
Yeah, can we take a closer look with, what would it be? Animal handling, perception?
Yeah.
This would be animal handling, and I will let you make that. You'll be doing this at advantage, because this is the benefit that I mentioned before. Wow.
Natural 20!
Wow. So both of you just create a whole new horse. Here, have a new pony. Oh man.
Amazing.
They do not joke around, people. When they're like, look, he doesn't get hurt. He doesn't get hurt, okay?
We're very serious.
We're very serious.
Protecting our animal friends.
Yeah, so you were able to determine that there's two things wrong. It appears that when he stumbled, that he did in fact fall, and he must have slid down, if you had to guess, because if he had fallen directly 8 feet, frankly, he would, it's not likely that he would have not had broken bones and everything. But you think what probably happened is that he slid down a very steep bank because of all this loose, pebbles and gravel and stuff, and he slid sideways, Inga, which is why he pulled away from you. You actually were lucky you didn't fall right into it when you were walking along. And so that was what sort of yanked the rein out of your hand. His left hoof, from what you can tell, appears to have a crack in it, though, and there is a rock that is wedged into the crack of the hoof.
All right. Probably best.
Inga probably doesn't know how to handle that, does she?
So I think that, let me just double check. I suspect River has handled this stuff before, but it would probably be best to get Tawny to look at actually fixing the problem.
Okay, and Magric actually calls out at this point and says, "Well, any luck? Have you found him?"
We've found him, and he's mostly fine. There's just a bit of a rock wedged in his hoof, which has a little bit of a crack in it. We should be able to. Would we be able to get him back up to the bank to get Tawny to look at him?
Not with his hoof like this, because you'd run the risk of causing the crack to widen and driving it deeper in.
Okay, and River's got her belt dagger, which would probably be okay to
get it
out.
Maybe,
but
you got to be.
a lot of tools with her. There must be something within her equipment.
Right. Yeah, I'll allow you to make a check for that, but be aware that because you haven't dealt with this before, Inga, I would say that probably River has dealt with. I don't know whether you've dealt with a cracked hoof though. You might have.
I think that's probably slightly rocks in between horseshoes and
right.
Probably, but not so much cracked hoof.
And the thing you have to be careful about is that basically, as you probably know, the horse hoof, to really oversimplify, is kind of like a human nail.
Yeah.
And so if there's something stuck between the nail and the finger, if you can imagine what that feels like,
trying to walk on that with all of your weight.
I don't want to hear any more of it.
Yeah, and that's not good. It's not good.
So Inga basically ruffles through the gear that Lilleman has loaded up and gets out a few tools where she thinks they might be useful and shows them to the River and it's here, can you do anything with any of these?
We could come down if you need, Magric shouts.
Yes, I think that would be best, actually. I think if Tawny can come down and take a look at this. Tawny, have you dealt with a cracked hoof in a horse before?
That's up to you whether you have, Tawny.
Not my own horses, no, but one of my neighbors did. He came to me for help. It went okay, but I didn't know as much about healing then as I do now, so...
Magric says to you, that this sounds like a job for you then. I'll stay up top here with Stone and the rope. Just be careful on your way down. The last thing we need is a cracked foot to go along with a cracked hoof.
True.
And so Tawny will make his way down.
Okay. The rope creaks a bit with as the Bjorning goes down, but it's fine. You get down to the center again. You feel what I described about the sort of loose rock and shale. Even as you're walking on it, I should have mentioned this to all of you. Even on flat ground, this is a little slippery. It's kind of like ball bearings almost on ice, and so down a slope. I mean, you can't even imagine. Anyway, when you get over, you can see that Inga and the river are holding Lilliman, who seems calm now, but definitely he's favoring his left hoof, and you can see the cracked, hoof with the stone in it.
I will definitely take a look at it then.
And can River be assisting?
I would say that you're keeping him stable and calm is probably the most you're going to be able to do here, and is useful to do that. So go ahead and because otherwise I'd have to have you be making checks to see if you can hold him steady, but I think he'll be steady because of the animal handling you guys did. Yeah. So, Tani, what you'll need to do here is a medicine check, obviously, and not animal handling. This is medicine to see if you can even figure out what the heck to do with, this. So.
Well, first thing he's going to do is stand next to Lilliman, facing towards his back half, and pull his hoof up between his legs, so he's got the hoof upside down in front of his face. So he can
right.
Yeah, and Inge is like standing in front of Lilliman for the whole deal, and like.
Okay, Lilliman is kind of like.
River is like whispering soothing noises to him and petting his mane.
Is Lilliman shod? Does he have horseshoes?
Should? Yeah, absolutely. He's a dwarven pony. Of course he has horseshoes.
then he's used to somebody handling his feet.
Yeah.
Like Inge regularly cleans his hooves anyway.
Okay.
Oh.
So, as you're you're kind of reaching around, you're reaching around, and you're like, like, all of a sudden you're like, yeah, exactly. You accidentally jab him in the leg. No, I'm just kidding. You don't do that, but you pull it out, and you can see where the stone is. The concern is, Tani, that your feeling is that as you try to pull it out, you can kind of feel him resisting it a little bit, and your worry is that if you do this wrong, you're going to pull out little bits of the hoof with it, which is going to expose it and basically make it feel very uncomfortable. So you have to figure out something else how to do this. But clearly part of the stone has gone into his foot a little bit, and so that part has to be removed.
I hate this game.
First we lose Robar.
Now I lose my pony.
Can River also make a medicine check?
Maybe, but it depends on to do what, though, the River. I mean, are you...
I guess just to see if she could have see something that Tawny has missed, or
No, I wouldn't say that. You might be able to. There's going to be an opportunity for another check. Trust me, that's going to come after. But I think you've done as much as you can do on the keeping them calm sort of side of things. And Magric sort of shouts, "How's it going there?"
How's it going, Tawny?
Not well.
And
Maybe better.
And Magric says, so he has, I forget if you actually said that he has a stone in his hoof, right? Cracked hoof. So he says, well, is the stone up into his foot at all?
Tawny?
Well, given the medicine, I rolled a natural 1.
Yeah, but you're able to see it.
You do have advantage, so.
You actually rolled a natural 3? Yeah. All right, you do get advantage on these.
Well, only on the first check, but remember it was only the first interactive check, which is technically the animal handling.
Okay.
But so it doesn't really apply to his medicine check. But either way,
I see.
Either way, though, even with a critical fail doesn't mean that he goes blind and his head falls off. So you can definitely see.
We may have just lost an oxen.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. Somewhere else in the world, the oxen died, like for no reason. So when you're looking at it, you can kind of see that the rock probably is up a little bit into the foot, although it's not clear how much. And Magric sort of. So anyway, that's what you can see.
Part of the problem is that there's a lot of shale down here, and every time I try to pull some out, it just fractures, and the smaller pieces go deeper.
Can't we just like bind his foot, like his hoof somehow, like put some cloth over it, make sure, you know?
He says,
something?
not unless you want that to go farther up into his leg. He said,
Exactly.
but on the other hand, he said, if you could remove just enough of the stone to get it out of his foot, you might be able to shave off the rest of it, and it would serve itself as a way to protect the hoof. Eventually, as it grows out, it'll push out the foreign material anyway. But at least at the beginning, it would allow you, with stone, to protect the bottom of his hoof. That's assuming you can get the part out of his foot, though.
Margaret, have you done this before?
And he said, and sort of from the fog, you hear him chuckle, and he says, I've had to deal with my share of ponies and horses, but I'm no...
Well, get
I
down
wouldn't...
here.
I'm,
Now.
I'm not an expert, you know.
To pull us up afterwards too.
He said, somebody has to stay up here, and I'm no expert, you know.
What if would it help at all to soak the hoof? To help,
Give him a pedicure.
just to help.
Ponycure.
A ponycure. I hate you.
Oh,
Pony.
You started this.
Pony cure.
only more questions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, would soaking it help? You know, the way that we soak our hands if we get glass in it or something to help get the slivers out. Would this help?
Do you address that to? Do you say that out like to just to Tawny, or do you sort of shout it out to Magric, or what?
I think she would have been saying it to Tawny.
Okay, that's what I figured.
But, yeah.
Possibly. We'd have to soak it for a long time.
I don't mean soak it to the point where it comes out on its own, but perhaps to the point where it's easier to remove.
Well, no, what I mean is you would have to soak the hoof long enough for the hoof itself to begin to soften. Then you would be able to pull the shale out more easily, but that would take hours.
No, we don't have that time. Well, Tawny, I have seen you heal an eagle that was at death's door. I have every confidence that you can get a bit of shale out of this pony's hoof.
And you hear a Tawny from the top of the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
He says, come back to the bottom of the cliff for a moment.
Don't let him put too much weight on this.
Yeah, River goes to move to the back and
Okay.
help hold his hoof a little bit.
And then Tawny, you go back up to the edge of the cliff, and then you hear him say, all right, hold up your hands and don't let this drop to the ground. And the next thing you feel is this, and this this cloth, this damp, warm cloth that seems to be fairly saturated, is on top of it. Now, it's only lukewarm. And he says, it's a little bit of a trick. Involves a little bit of lantern heating and water using. He said, that won't last that long, but if you put that on the bottom of the hoof, that'll start soaking the hoof. And of course, he hadn't heard you talking about that. So, yeah, well, he hadn't heard you talking about it. But this poultice that he gave you. So you now have this, like, squishy, damp poultice.
Hey, bud, take it over and start putting it on there. Once this comes out, and the hardest part of this to deal with is going to be the fact that I may have to splay the hoof just a little bit wider to get the whole of this stuff out. I can definitely heal it. That's not the problem. I have to get the chip out first.
Right. We'll keep him as calm as we can.
Okay, so you place, so you sort of, you begin to do this, and as time passes, the fog begins to lift, and within probably about an hour or so, you can see that you are now standing there in gray sky, but now much clearer sky, and now you can definitely see this shower of stone and rock, apparently, that had come down from the slope down which he had slipped. And you can actually see that not far from the edge, Inga, where you dropped over the rope, there's a spot where technically someone could, if they were careful, slide down, although there's a lot of sharp rock down here anyway, so you might not want to do that. But Magrick's standing at the top, sort of looking concerned. He looks down at you and then looks over sort of in the horizon as if kind of keeping lookout. And you can see that Lillimon is definitely calm and seems to be like the area around the hoof doesn't seem to look as angry as it did. It seems like the inflammation may have dropped a little bit. So you think, Tani, that the area may be sort of wide enough that you could maybe remove it or give it a try.
Okay.
All right, so let's do that medicine again.
Come on, Tani.
Also, well, too late now, but
11.
just saying inspiration is a thing.
That's true.
That's
yeah.
true. Inspiration is a thing. That's true. I forgot to mention that. We did. Kursestrad used quite a few inspirations when they were battling hags in a 40-foot circle. But they're.
Tani already has inspiration.
Yeah, that's true. He does. Although in this case, the 11 I think would have been suitable anyway for him. So you are able to clear out the chips. He kind of whinnies a little bit as you get the last bit out, but you can now see that it's clear, and it looks as if the area does not look bruised below it or anything like that. But there is just a little bit of blood that you're able to dab away, but it's not something that was like hugely way into his foot. And so now the question is, but there is this little bit of a gap now in his hoof.
Inga, do you have an empty sack?
Yes.
Could you take that bag of sugar and empty it into that sack?
Okay. Inga does that.
Since you said that there was a leather pouch that someone had.
Yes,
tied
indeed.
around.
Very nice one.
So he'll put the leather pouch around the hoof and cinch it
I
down.
would
So
have
that,
also had a spare leather pouch, just saying. She has like
Okay.
a billion bags on.
right. Okay.
Another bag of sugar. Yeah, just give him a
Whichever.
bunch of sugar. Okay, just walk it off.
So give him a nice, soft leather cast so that no dirt and stuff gets into it.
Okay.
I'm just imagining Inga as like the Middle Earth equivalent of people like myself who save every plastic bag by knotting it and stuffing it somewhere where you
Yeah,
inevitably,
basically.
like, yeah.
That's basically it.
I mean, Inga basically grew up on the road. Like, her thing is like, have always a bunch of bags on you.
Yeah, exactly. You'll never. It's like people who drive around with a bunch of shock cords, like always the rubberized cords with the hooks on the end of them. It's like my dad was always like, "You never could have enough shock cords." I'm like, "Why do we have a thing of like 100 shock cords?" He's like, "Because someday you'll need shock cords." I'm like, "Dad, you could actually lift people up cliffs with this." He's like, "Well, when you need to be lifted up a cliff, you'll thank me."
Exactly.
I was like, "All right, well,
It
okay."
happens a lot in this campaign, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Crossing rivers and climbing up stuff.
Rivers and cliffs, that's true. All right. So, yeah, you're able to do that, and when he kind of lowers his hoof kind of tentatively and puts it down, and he kind of looks around, it seems like he's okay. Like it doesn't seem to be bothering him too much. Now,
Inga's like hugging his head and like petting him and like telling him that
And he's
good,
kind of-
but feeding him like more sugar cubes.
he's whinnying and like eating every sugar cube you feed him. Like definitely enjoying that. Now, so Magrick says, sort of smiles as he sees that the cast. He says, "Good work, Tani. Your talents are wasted on humans. You should have spent all your time on the animals, my friend." He said,
If
"The
only.
only..." What's that again?
If only.
If only. He says, "The only problem is, now, how do we get him back up?" And you can see that there is a pretty steep slope. Now, you could maybe with difficulty scramble up it, or of course you've got the rope there. But getting him up, it doesn't look like it's going to be easy. This spot here looks like it goes forward some distance. It is sort of like almost a little bit of a very small ravine, really more of a depression in the earth. And maybe on the other end of it, there may be a sort of more shallow slope. But it's definitely something where you'd have to go down that way apart from whoever's up on top, if you follow what I mean. So like he's not going to be able to, like whoever's up on top is not going to be able to see you for every step of this journey if you continue along the bottom here.
I would suggest that we is what's his name, Mark?
Magritte.
Mark. We call him Mark, you know. Mark. He is he's still up on the.
Yes.
He's
Okay.
at this point the only one of us who's still up there.
Okay, so Inga suggests that and the mist is still there too, right? So
No, the fog is cleared now.
oh, the
fog is
now.
cleared.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
good.
Still gray, but it's not like foggy.
Okay, good. Then Inga suggests that like those of us who are still down here stay down here, and we just like keep walking parallel until we find a spot where we can get up easier.
Well, Maverick is our guide. Would it not make more sense for him to come down the hill and join us if it's possible to travel across this ravine?
Well, I mean, like, for as long as we can, like, because the ravine is not very deep, right? So if we can still, like, you know, are still in contact, he can still come down here if needed. So I would just say, like, let's just keep him up there until, like, there is no point in, like, staying split, basically. Just, like, walk in parallels until we can't anymore, basically.
Is that feasible?
Or we
So-
send, like, one person in one direction, one person in the other direction, just find a spot where
Right.
we can get out easier.
He won't be able to walk in parallel with you, as I mentioned, because the ravine sort of is not. There's the land doesn't sort of go right close to where he can see down over it. However, he could come down and accompany you in the ravine, or you could accompany, like, have one of you go down, or like whatever. You could balance it out and do it however you like. You can't see the end of this ravine from here, but it does extend to the south in the same approximate direction you were going.
Well,
Magritte, is it possible to travel in the same direction across this ravine? If you came down and joined us, could you continue to lead us this way?
He says, well, it's possible we could. The problem is, if anyone who has ill intent happens to find us, the last place we'd want to be is in a narrow ravine exposed to the air. I'd hate for some creatures to come upon us here. He said, but it's conceivable. I don't know much about this particular spot, actually. This seems fairly new. I wonder if it's been created by a rockfall or earthfall, something like that. But he says, nonetheless, if we continue to go this way, we're only probably a half a day's journey or so from the river, maybe less. If we were to continue this path, perhaps the rocks would get a little bit less sharp, and perhaps the slope would be a little bit less steep. It could be.
Stone is also still up there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's been
I would
looking
just
over.
say
He's
we
been looking
stay
over the edge, like
until
whimpering.
because with Stone he can still find us at any point, like no matter where we get, right? Because Stone can always find River,
extent.
right? So
Yeah. River's not crazy about being separated from Stone for that purpose.
yeah, but like if we get ambushed in here, like we are screwed basically. So,
Well, that's the thing. So maybe it does actually make sense for us to split the party a little bit and have one more person up there.
in space.
Always
Never
makes
splits a
sense to
party, never
split the
splits a party.
Never split the
party.
party.
Well, I mean, yeah. I'm not gonna say anything. You guys have to decide.
Yeah. Like, it's not. I don't think it would be as difficult for River to scramble back up the ravine and go that way, but I mean, what tactical advantage is gained by two people being at the top of the ravine and two people being at the bottom? Is there any?
One of the tactical advantages is that whoever's up top would be able to see any potential
Yeah,
ambush.
that's the idea
Right.
here.
Okay.
Not to mention if this ravine wanders,
Yeah.
overland, we've got a clear shot to where we need to go. Down here, we don't
Yeah.
know where.
But he's also saying that whoever's up top won't necessarily be able to continue to see us. So
Not
it-
directly. I mean,
Not
you know,
directly.
you would never. You guess you'd be able to hear each other pretty because it's not like it extends way off in the distance. But
Because
Well,
if
we
it
can't
did
get
extend-
Lilleman up here. I think it's too much of a risk to like try and get Lilleman upset. So,
Yeah, agreed.
So
Um,
Inga's gonna stay down here. So yeah. What you guys do?
And if the top of the ravine did extend that far enough away,
Mhm.
that would mean that the incline was shallow enough that we could
right,
probably walk
exactly,
right up.
exactly.
So,
I think it makes perfect sense to continue walking across the ravine. I just don't know if it makes sense for Magric to stay away from us. Like, if it makes... Like, if we're trying to prevent being ambushed, then maybe it would make more sense to have all of us, like, no?
I don't agree, but we can put it to a vote.
No,
Brenda, and your side.
Yeah, just...
Basically.
My daughter wishes to report that she thinks you should all stay together as a team because it seems like a bad idea to divide the team.
But we are already divided.
Because I have perhaps instructed my daughter in the finer parts of not splitting the party. But anyway, yeah. So she wanted to say that was her suggestion.
That's such good advice. Well, I think then Magric should just come and join us. That's the in order to... No?
I would say no, but, you know. So...
Magric,
Yes, sir.
you say you're not that familiar with this particular ravine and you think it's probably fairly recent.
I would assume.
And by that same logic, not many other people know about it either.
True.
Therefore, it's not likely to be a favorite ambush spot of anyone.
Oh, no, I think we would just have... I don't think anyone is planning this. It would be the worst luck possible. But then again, we had a bit of that bad luck just now with Lillimon.
Well, hopefully we've worn that out.
He nods. I'm happy to stay up or come down, whichever you like.
Come down.
And he nods. He takes another sort of look over his shoulder, and he says, very well. One of you will need to come over, though, so I can drop Stone down to you carefully. Otherwise, you'll have Stone up top, and I don't know if you'll be happy with that.
Right, Stone can't just, like, kind of carefully scramble down.
I mean... like basically as a mini version of Lillimon,
right,
you know, like
right.
so.
How we said 3 meters, right?
Right, roughly.
Yeah, right. No, okay. So, but that means that she could like catch him. Probably.
Oh yeah. Or even Tawny could. Like if he's up at the top, it's not a huge drop. Yeah.
Let's do it this way. River, get on my shoulders.
Oh, that's a good idea. All right, let's do it.
Okay. So you head over there. Now, fortunately, there is, again, the loose shale and gravel, but you're just standing in one place, and there is no fog now. So Magric reaches over. Stone kind of gives you this look as Magric reaches to kind of reach underneath his belly, and Stone kind of is like,
It's okay, Stone. Just come to me.
So he allows Magric to pick him up. Magric carefully brings him over and like lowers him to you, River. And so you have him, and now you are. There's a sort of a moment of like a quick greatest selfie ever of Bjorning with Woodsman on the head with a dog, and like Anyway,
we just need a really big trench coat to wrap around ourselves.
Exactly. Voltron, and I'll form the head. All right, so.
I mean, Stone is like literally half River's size.
Yeah, no, I know. You're kind of like.
I'm imagining her like him, like carrying a baby on you like this, like just kind of paws around her shoulder.
Yeah. No, I dig it. Hey, before we go on, Amal, do you want to yell at Carlos in person? Because Death by Sumo says, "Hit my word count. I get to reward myself by watching Ewans put arrows in orcs' eye sockets."
What? Carlos, hello. How very dare! But yes.
What's up? Good to see you, Carlos. So you lower them on. Yes, you lower them, and he grabs, sort of grabs the, and then gradually sort of lowers Stone down to the ground, getting off the shoulders, and then all of you are off. And Stone goes over carefully, and then kind of nuzzles up against Lillimon. Lillimon kind of. Like puts his nose down by Stone. Of course, they've been friends for a long time now. Then Magric clambers down the rope and goes up, and he says to you quietly, Tawny, he says, "I sort of hate to leave it. I'm wondering if it would be better to cut it."
And Tawny wraps one arm around the rope, puts his foot against the side of the thing, and just pulls with everything he's got.
Give me a strength check, please.
If it is that rocky.
Can I help him?
I was going to say there's plenty of rope behind me if
Sure.
somebody else wants to grab
And
too.
if someone wants to assist, you can do that. I'll give you +2 for everyone who wants to assist.
Yeah. Okay. River will assist as well.
Okay.
Even though she doesn't have much of a strength check. But...
Yeah, neither do I. That's why it's a good thing.
Inga does.
Yeah, I know. That's why I
Inga,
was.
I mean, if Inga wants to, do you want to leave? You want to leave Lillimon behind for a second and do that? Lillimon looks at you.
He's not that far away.
Eyes narrowed.
Fight.
Don't just listen. Yeah.
You hear Lives, I am
Inga's
overcome,
not
as you I am overcome, as you walk over to the... No, you don't do that. All right, so you're going to make a strength check, and then you'll add +2 for Tani and +2 for the river assisting you.
Okay, I'm just gonna roll my regular strength.
Okay.
And then just like edit in my head. Oh, it's not a saving throw though, right? So.
Right.
No, it's not a save throw, it's check. Yeah, if you have athletics, that would also work. I would take that.
Oh, yeah. River's.
Oh yes, please, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, it's athletics for
so
sure.
I get +4, right?
Is that... Yeah, you
Wait,
are
who's helping?
Tani and the
Yeah.
river, so that's +2 for
okay.
each.
Yeah, +4.
Okay.
Do I still get advantage?
Nope.
Okay, so
That's 10.
that's 10.
Okay, so you pull... This thing is not... You kind of hammered that in reasonably well up top, Tani. And Magric says, it's unfortunate. It was a good thought. I suppose we would have been safe even if we had wanted to try to lift Lillimon up. Not now, though.
Well, why don't you help us as well, Magric? Just we'll give it another heave-ho.
He says, if there's enough rope left, I suppose. And he kind of gets up behind you. So you could try one more time with him helping. This is not infinite
plus
checks, though. If it doesn't work
No,
this
no,
time, it
no.
doesn't work.
Right. Let me just.
Why is take
Good
10
points.
not a thing anymore?
So this
I know.
is +6 to whatever you roll.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, 16 then, that should be enough. right?
Okay. Yeah, so you're... And finally it pulls free. You kind of stumble back a little bit, but you're caught by the, doink, doink, doink as people, like,
Almost
stop
hit
you.
the face with the piton.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. The piton, like,
Whoa!
strikes Lillimon in the exact same hoof. Oh, God, why? No, I'm just kidding.
Wide
Doesn't-
open. Now he's got 5 legs.
No. None of this actually happens. None of this actually happens. So you pull it free, and Magric says, all right, well, we're committed, my friends. He says, I'll go ahead. You can follow along with Lillimon and with Stone. Be careful with the animals, obviously. I think if they're just standing on top of this shale, it won't do anything unless they jump up and down on it. And he looks down at Stone and he says, don't jump up and down on it now. Stone's like,
Also, like, Inga starts to, like, readjust, like, all the weight she has put previously on Lilliband, like, takes off, like, as much as she can carry herself.
okay. Magric says, says, here, let me take a little bit of that too. Does so. He kind of, rubs his wrist a little bit as he moves one of the sort of arms of the, like sacks onto his arm so he can kind of hold it over his wrist. And then continues to move forward with it and then says, all right, off we go. If all goes well, like all good things, this will lead eventually to the river. And perhaps with our own river with us, we'll find a way to do that safely. And he kind of smiles at you, River, and then turns, and then all of you set off carefully. Lillimon seems to be moving reasonably well. Doesn't seem to be too hurt, but seems to be moving reasonably well towards it. And for the next couple of hours, as you pad along the shale sort of belief, it's kind of slow going for the first half hour or so because of the shale, but then over time the rocks become less and you're dealing more with just dirt, and they move more easily. And then sure enough, the hill, the sort of ravine, begins to rise slightly, and seems to be heading up, and you hear the sound of a river approaching as you continue. Yes, Tani?
Slight flashback. There will be a point during this travel where Tawny will kind of pick up a couple of pieces of shale and go over to Inga and say,
These tend to fracture very easily and leave little shards of rock in things. Could these be made into some form of a weapon?
What is shale?
Some
It's,
kind of rock.
yeah, it's very flaky in a lot of ways. Like if you were to make a knife.
Like it never picks you up from the airport on time. It's
Right,
just like,
exactly.
It's really
I hate it so much.
joking.
But it's kind of a dark gray sort of color, and like it'll break.
Oh,
flakes
Shifa.
off.
Yes, I know exactly what that is.
We have a lot of shell at school.
Shale weapon? That doesn't sound too...
In fact, I'm a little surprised you never played Dragon Age, Terry?
I Yeah, I mean, like, there's a golem.
Right, I was gonna say. Well, but shale he's made of rock, right? So
But he's not made of shale.
no, but
Not made.
they didn't call him rock. Maybe there's like a whole like.
By the way, her. Shayla's
That's right. That's right. That's right. I beg your pardon. You're right. Her, as we the spoilers. Spoilers. You don't know that at
Haven't
first.
played Dragon Age yet.
Well, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Anyway, so yeah. So I'm sorry. So you were talking to her about using it as a weapon.
well, like Rita, me, not Inge, has never heard of like anything like it's like stuff you use for walls and roofs.
But it
and
breaks
it's super
easily.
brittle.
But it's specifically because it breaks easily and leaves bits in. Are you thinking of like a kind of like shotgun scatter situation?
Sort of like a knife, flechette or sabot. Yes.
Right.
Well, Inge would know, right? So would
Yeah.
that be a possibility?
I think Inge is probably quite well acquainted with different varieties of rock and the uses thereof.
That's stereotyping. no.
That is stereotyping against stonemasons.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
So Arf, what you say?
Yes. So I think I've only just spoilers. I've only played DAO 12 times. Exactly, Cujo. Yeah. So I mean, I think so. You're asking whether you would be able to do something like this theoretically.
I mean,
because yes,
Yeah,
the answer
I
is
have no idea.
yeah. The answer is that you certainly think that this is much weaker stone than you would normally work with, Inge. Like shale would not be like well suited for construction, because of its nature. It's not very strong. However, it is very sharp, and it's certainly stronger than, say, as you've proven, flesh. And under certain circumstances, it could be used. For example, you could almost make something even like an arrowhead out of it.
Yeah, that's
that
what I
would
was
be. I hate to use this term, but it's kind of like. It's like one of those explosive, I forget what they're called, like the things that should not exist in the world. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like the
Yes.
bullet heads that are sort of like they're you could use this as an arrowhead also. Now, the thing about that would be it would work, but these are arrows that would be one use only because it would immediately, shatter upon like impact. And they
useless
would
against armor.
correct, useless against armor and not as accurate because the weight is off. Because they're not normally the front of an arrow is slightly more weight than the back of the arrow, so that it keeps it straight as you fire it from the bow. If you have an arrowhead that's lighter than that, this is why if you ever made a paper plane as a kid, you always put a paper clip on the end of on the plane so that it actually has weight to allow you to cast it forward. If you don't do that, the plane goes woo off in all directions.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
I never knew that either. We literally had to like build a paper plate in physics class.
Oh yeah, you always use a paper clip. Yeah, a light
Yeah,
one.
no,
Obviously, if
different
it's too
than,
heavy, it just like dives to the ground. But if you do this with so you can still use it, so it won't be as accurate, but it would definitely do more damage to an unarmored foe.
You can just remedy the weight problem by adding like additional weight, but for example, like binding like additional shards to it or something.
Yes, but you don't have a lot of room to do it and still have it be an effective arrowhead. But yes, I mean, like these are all. But the point is, it's a trade-off. You would get more damage from these things for sure, but you would do so at the risk of, at the slightly less accuracy. But it would
So-
definitely do more damage, no doubt.
What Inge does is like tell Tony like all these things in detail that you could do with that kind of, and like trying to find like something that like would like suit him best.
And you could probably gather enough raw material, Tani, to make maybe, I would say, 8 of these arrows, if you wanted to do that. You would also need to use a little bit of probably rope and some tar. I'm going to assume that you have the tar, but you'd have to use tar, just even mud, something to be able to sort of lock it in place while you sort of wrap it properly.
Oh!
So, yes.
Throwback to like one of our very first sessions.
Yeah.
Inge still has the black feathers from the pheasant she shot in the.
Okay.
in
So you
Bergwood.
could. So you're saying you could make an arrow, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm just like saying, hey, we can put like black fleshing on it and make like black murder arrow.
Black arrow. And then you could say black arrow, black arrow. Yes, you could definitely do that. That's
I don't use bows. I'm not really skilled to making arrows. It was just an idea that if you wanted to do this sort of thing, you could do it.
Yeah, sure. So Inga is like picking up some of the
Okay.
shale.
Yeah, so go ahead and make a note that you have material enough to make 8 of these arrows. When you put them together mechanically, I'll tell you what damage they do when you fire them. But you have enough to make 8. Now, you're also going to need to do this after a rest. So if you run into, a fight in the next 5 minutes, you can't use them, obviously. But after you've had a chance to take a look.
Wait a minute.
Just give me a second, like, quickly for
Hang on.
manufacture.
Let me just finish winding. I'll be right with you.
I'm almost ready. The orc is like, really? So,
I'm imagining, like, River, tying bits of shale to either side of her axe and just kind of
I don't want to overstate what this is. Not nitroglycerin. Let's not like is this image of like if I add shale, I also do more damage.
No.
Yeah.
This is the farthest thing from her mind right now. It's
Okay,
just,
that's what I figured.
let's get out of this shale valley.
As you get closer to it, you can see that the hill is starting to lift upwards. Basically, the ground that you're on, as I said, is not much more shale left over time. It's more dirt and grass. And as you move up, you hear the sound first of all of the rushing river, and then as you come up to the top, Magric sort of smiles and holds up a hand for you all to stop just before that, and says, "Well, my friends, this actually could have been much worse." And he smiles and points. So you'd have to come up next to him now if you wanted to see what he was pointing at. He was mostly trying to keep you from bringing the animals there, but others could come up next to him.
Inga's gonna stay with Lilliman.
Okay.
River scrambles up to see what he's looking at.
So you see that you are actually you're basically right. I will show you where. It looks like you were basically right around here. And this ravine has sort of wound its way over to right about here. And you were almost right before, on the one side, the Anduin Vales to the south over here, this area, and to the Gladden Fields, which is the marshy area over to the northeast. And while this, although it is a dark and dangerous land, looks a lot more pleasant at the moment because it seems a lot drier, this is where you're going, right? I mean, you were planning to get into this spot. And so he smiles and he says, right here where we are is probably the best fordable area I could have brought us to, even though I hadn't intended it. And you can see that the area where you are looks to be half river, half marsh. Like it looks as if it's not even that deep, and you could probably cross over into the Gladden Fields without having to, go through the usual shenanigans that you folks do when you do this. Now he looks back at you and he says, now, the only difficulty here is the animals. If you're able to bring them across, for example, Inga might have a hard time, but if you keep your head up, you should be okay. But Stone would probably have a difficult time, and Lilliman, certainly with that leg, might pull, off the leather bag that he's got on his foot. So we need to think about how to get him across safely. But this would be the spot to cross if we're going to do it.
River smiles a little bit and looks at Tawny, going, Tawny has a great deal of experience with fording with the animals in deeper water than this, for that matter.
But this isn't water. Not just water.
No. Is it like sucking and muddy? Is that
as I say, it's sort of half and half. It looks like the spot you're going into is going to be more sucking and muddy because you're passing into a marshy area. Here it looks a little bit more, there's more flow to it, so it looks like it doesn't have as much marshy area right there.
Okay. River says, I'll be happy to go across first and see what it's like just to walk across if that's of any help.
He says, I'm happy to do that too if you wish.
Could River carry Stone across? Or
yeah, I think so. Okay. You would not have the benefit of much balancing of your arms, so if there was a stumble or a slip, then you're kind of in trouble. Not in trouble, but you wouldn't be able to catch yourself as much. But yeah, there's no reason you can't. Like, it's not that deep. It probably comes up to not quite your waist, maybe a little bit less, lower than that.
And like, there's also then not much of a current. Like, I'm wondering, like,
right,
Stone
not much of a
could
current.
swim it as well.
Yep.
So he could just
Could
swim
possibly
across
swim
next
it.
to her.
That's right.
Okay. Well, then in that case, rather than carry him, she'll just walk and have him swim next to her and keep an arm out on him to make
Okay.
sure that he's not getting swept away.
Okay.
Okay, so...
What about Lil'Man?
Well, she's going to walk across first and see what it's like.
Oh, with
and
Stone?
then-
Okay, so...
Yeah.
All right.
And then report back.
Yeah, you do that with no difficulty at all. Stone is able to sort of swim, half semi dog paddle, whatever, over next to you. And when you get to the side, you find that there is a, in quotes, drier. It's pretty muddy and squishy, but it is dry enough that you can kind of stand up on top of it without sinking down into it, and you can see the fields below you. I won't describe it to you yet, but you can see that you are able to get to it, and the rest of you can see them standing on the other side of the bank, kind of waving back at you.
Yeah. I think that, and like River will indicate that like it was good.
Like
Okay.
Inga is just like looking down for us for a moment and then just like turning to like whoever's like standing next to her, like either Tony or Mark.
Okay.
What's his name again?
Magric.
And just goes like, I wonder like now that Lil'Man is injured, if it's actually so wise to take him with us here anyway. Like, because it's probably only gonna get worse from here on out.
And Magric sort of nods and he says, well, I did think a little bit about that, but the reality is that the Gladden Fields are marshy and difficult at times, but this is not the dead marshes. There is usually purchase enough for people to be able to make their way without falling into it, but we will definitely need to keep our wits about us. I must say the benefit of Lil'Man is that he can carry some goods that otherwise we would have to be weighed down with, and that's all to the benefit. We could use both of our hands, each of us, to be able to traverse this at times. I think, and he kind of looks appraisingly, kind of sizes up Lil'Man, he says, I think your horse has got enough strength to me to be able to make this route. It seems like he's been through stuff like this before. And Lil'Man sort of pauses for a moment as he's looking at the sugar, not like the lump of sugar, and looks up, is like, huh? That type of thing. And he says, I think Lil'Man may have the ability to get through this. It's your decision, but I think he could make it.
Well, I mean...
That Lil'Man does that
The
too.
sound, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What a good horse sound.
Lil'Man does the exact same thing.
I mean, would have to like leave him behind on his own. I'm not exactly comfortable with that either. So.
Hey, Bill the pony survived. But yes.
Bill knows his way home.
Bill
Where
knows
is
his way home.
Lil'Man's home?
Yeah,
This
is a whole spin-off adventure. Like the whole thing is the adventures of Lil'Man.
With alone, yeah, that's gonna end well.
Yep. Well, what shall we do?
Yeah, I'm gonna take him with us. I suppose, like, because like the only like feasible thing would like to send him back through this like ravine area, and if like another mist comes up, then Lil'Man would be, yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So you begin to, so you're going to make your way across. So how are you going to, I guess Tani is going to basically be holding Lil'Man, if I understand this correctly. And are you going to be alongside Inga, like kind of guiding them, making sure that, they're not
How deep
slipping?
Is the water again?
It's like it'll be for you, it would be up to like your, let me see, as I look at the, yeah, to you, it's probably a little bit below your chest, so it's fairly tall. This was extremely helpful. I just looked up at the picture that you did, like literally, Terry, and I'm just like, well, let me look at the scale. Yeah, so,
That's
yeah.
why I draw all of these to scale always.
Yeah, it's really useful, actually. But anyway, yeah.
If you need to know though, she is 5'1" or 1 meter.
Yeah, that fits. Yeah.
So, yeah, like.
Just a heads up, guys. I need to leave in 5 minutes because I've got to go to work after this. So.
I see. Oh, it's already that late.
Yeah.
Yeah, like then Inga is like gonna try to help Tony.
Okay.
Can't really visualize how that would work.
Well, so Tani is able to sort of, carry him across, more or less, kind of like guiding him. It's really more like guiding, like holding him as he kind of paddles forward as much as a horse can, as a pony can, while you're next to him on the other side, basically making sure that he doesn't slip from Tani's grasp, more or less is the way I imagine it, Inga. And so as you do this, Tani, I'm going to ask you to make a strength check here. To do this. This won't be too difficult of a one, though.
Athletics?
Yes, athletics is fine.
Anything assist then?
6.
That work?
Yeah, and I guess I'll give...
If she's helping and I get advantage, then that's 16.
Yeah, not advantage, but I'll give you +4 to that. So I think that would be 10, actually, which would be just enough anyway. So you're able to... you slip a little bit. There is a little bit of mud down at the bottom, but you're able to cross over with them and eventually find yourself on the other side of the stream. And as you kind of pull... Or the river. And as you pull yourself up next to the river and Magric, he smiles and he says, "See, there? Not that bad." And he points and he says, "Not that bad yet. All we have to do now is get through that." And he points, and here I'm going to pop up something on the stream for all of you to look at. Oops, sorry. Okay. And you see something really important that is totally ready to be shown.
Dob says on chat, "Can I inspire the river to
Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah, unfortunately, you'd have to inspire my supervisor to look the other way while I didn't turn up at work on time.
Yeah. Okay, now you can see it on stream. This lays out before you. Now, the Gladden Fields are not the worst swamp in Middle-earth. That would be the Dead Marshes or the Long Marshes south of the Long Lake. But its tangled terrain can be confusing, and as you look and see the marsh in front of you, kind of looking out into the distance, Magric says, well, somewhere in there is the Dwimmerhorn, and all we need to do, my friends, is find our long, winding way, somehow, to it. And with that, we will bring this to a close. This session for today, and we will pick up next session actually traversing the Gladden Fields.
Is that a hat? What a great hat that was.
Yeah, this is she's got it's not a hat, it's a scarf, but she's
it's a scarf.
Yeah, that she was
I love
knitting
the
while we were
colors.
doing it.
The colors were so great.
But yes, so wonderful job as always, folks. And again, I'm sorry that we had to start a little bit late because of things, but we all know the reasons why and all that stuff. So I will start with the bottom with the person who will have to leave first, and that, of course, is Amal. Amal, always a pleasure, of course, and we will see you back here with us in 2 weeks. What did you think of today, and where will the fine people see you next before 2 weeks from now?
It is great. I'm slightly regretful that Will left us before our first fording of a river that didn't involve
I know.
But
well, it was all it's causational, right? Like he was gone,
right.
And then yeah.
I mean, if he were there, probably we would have actually had to swim or get sucked down by a bog witch or something. So, so
he might have been brilliant with ravines. Like we have no idea,
Yeah, it's true. It's true. No, so I always enjoy this. It's really great. And it's always a welcome respite from the rest of the world. So people, where will people see me next? I am not going anywhere for the rest of the year, with one potential maybe exception that I haven't made up my mind about, but it wouldn't be a public thing anyway. So I am home and available to my Ottawan friends, I think, for most of the rest of the year. But you can, I'm going to have a New York Times column going up in the next week or so. Honestly, I'm thinking of going on another Twitter hiatus because everything is, who even knows? I'll wait and see what happens today, but I think that a Twitter hiatus may be in my future, in which case, I think what I'd want to send people to do is sign up to my newsletter. And exciting things are happening with the novella of mine that's coming out next year.
Awesome.
We have a cover now, which I'm not sure exactly how this works. Well, like, we were supposed to have a cover reveal, but then John Scalzi tweeted a photo of him reading the arc that we sent him, so which had the cover on it. So in some ways, the cover has already been revealed, but it's a really great cover, and I am excited about it. And I hope people love our time traveling super spies as much as I do. So yeah, that's happening soon. But you can sign up to my newsletter, where I'll put links in the chat, and or just go to my website, amalalmahdar.com, and or my drip feed, which is d.rip/amalalmahdar. And all of those are places where you'll be able to see and talk to me outside of the Twitters, which I don't know if I'm sticking to for the next little while. So yeah, that's me. And looking forward to next session, and I will be gladdened to get out of Gladden fields. I'll do. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sleepy. This is the best thing.
It's fine. I'm just gonna field questions after you leave. That's all I'll do.
No. Yeah, I'm feeling really bogged down.
Oh man!
That I have to do.
And now you have to march off to work and.
Yes, that's right. I was gonna say I'm gonna marshal my resources as best I can, and I shall see you guys.
Bye.
Rockin'.
Okay, yeah.
Rockin'.
Guys, and seriously wishing everyone all the best. Well, not everyone. Wishing all people with a conscience all the best with the election and stuff. And see you guys on the flip side of that.
Amen. I'm looking forward to some good things on the other side. Thanks, Amal, as always. Great pleasure, and we will see you soon. Are you able to leave your camera up or no? Can you?
Oh, I can leave it up if it's helpful.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah, and then we'll just close down. Thank you. Thanks,
care.
Mel. Okay, so that is going to wrap up that part of things. Wrong person. There we go. Lovely. Okay, that brings us up to Terry. Terry, I know it was a difficult time today for Lilimon, but Lilimon got through it. Lilimon escaped and safely, and it was a little bit of a rough time, but eventually he ponied up, and everything was fine. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist it. Anyway, I could have resisted, but I just didn't. I didn't want to saddle you with that joke. So how did you? I've got to stop. But I'm gonna try to rein myself in. Okay, now I'm done. I promise I'm done now. How did you feel about things today, Terry? And where will the fine folks see you next?
Mixed feelings, obviously.
Yes, I know.
For hurting my baby. No, but otherwise that was very good fun. I really like our new PC companion here, Mark.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
It's fine, Saint Anger. No problem. I can handle it. Magric. His name is Magric.
But yeah, otherwise, I don't really have any plans also for the end of the year, aside from showing up here. And other than that, people can find my art in places. I mainly post on Tumblr, Instagram, and Twitter lately because it's the most convenient, because I can do that from my phone without much issue. So if you guys want to check out my drawings, then you can do that there. As I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I did finish my Inktober stuff, so there's plenty of new things to look at. Other than that, I would like to do a quick ad for something that is not my thing.
Okay.
But for anybody who is in the Netherlands or in the north of Belgium, I would like to point out that my boyfriend's band is going to play twice before the end of the year. On November 10th in Neuwendijk for the Slim House Festival.
Okay.
And on December 29th for the Brood Metal Fest in Horkum, for anybody who wants to come by. Please do.
Wow,
play
cool.
folk metal if you are into that. All of the fun Viking stuff. So if that's anybody of your jams, then and you are in the Wake area, please do come by. I would appreciate it. So.
Does he play? What does he play? What instrument?
He is a pianist.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, I am looking forward to hearing a full report and hope that it all goes really well and all that. But otherwise, we will see Terry back here in, I believe it's 2 weeks for AME and then 3 weeks for the game book illustration, I believe is what we're looking at. So it's going to be great. Not next week because she'll be celebrating her grandmother's 90th, which is very important. So
90. Like,
90
what
on the
hell?
90. No, I know it's awesome.
Yeah, who is turning 90? Like, oh,
It's
hell.
great. I love it.
Like the first time I ever hear that happening at all in this family. Like everybody usually dies before they turn 60 in this family. So
she's an inspiration. That's great. No, I'm really glad. Congratulations to her. Happy birthday to her. And thank you, Terry. Always a pleasure. And we will see you back here in a couple weeks. As I mentioned, for those of you who missed it, Will is going to be stepping back from the campaign for about the next 6 to 7 weeks. He's got a ton of stuff going on, and rather than continually trying to make it and then feeling guilty because he has stuff that comes up, he's going to step back until the new year. I may have something that will work out I may have a couple of surprises in store to kind of figure out how to work around that, but in the meantime, you can find him at Encounter Roleplay on Twitch, which is always great. Will is good people, so you should definitely check him out as soon as you can. He plays Robar Staunton, and hopefully Robar will be back with us and ready to deal with the frustration of his companions in-game and him having left. But moving right out of the line, finally, we end up with Tren. And Tren, you had an eventful day today with a lot of stuff you had to do in terms of proper amounts of healing and the like. So how'd you feel about being Dr. Doolittle today? And how was Life, the Universe, and everything during this campaign, during this adventure, I should say, this session? And where will the fine people see you next?
Well, I mean, it wasn't quite Dr. Doolittle because Lillimon and I weren't conversing.
Well, I mean, maybe not. I don't know.
No, I'm pretty sure I would have noticed.
Okay.
If that had been the case.
Okay.
But I thought today went well. We had our stumbling points, literally, in some cases. But I think all in all, it turned out fine. I hate to think what would have happened if the departure roll had not gone as well as it did. Given what we did deal with. Imagine rolling a 1 and it's like, you get right outside Mountain Hall and you are beset by a horde of 30
5 ring rates appear.
Exactly. 16 of them, but there's only supposed to be 9. Well, now there's 16.
Exactly. You rolled the 1. Don't shoot the messenger. Oh, man.
As for where people will see me next, if I manage to get, on Saturday, for more D&D.
Yes.
But if I manage to get the project that I want to get done, then recently during BlizzCon, Blizzard released the cinematic for Lost Honor, and it's really, really good. And it's one of those things where I start watching it, and every time I watch it, no matter how many times I watch it, I wind up starting to tear up and everything. It's wonderful, amazing. But I really get into Warcraft lore. And they've been getting really, really good with the how the cinematics look and everything, and they're just fantastic. But what I've been watching, like for a lot of the day yesterday, watching people doing, reaction videos. We get to watch people react to watching the thing, which seems kind of, but it's actually pretty entertaining to watch people see this for the first time and get their reaction to. It's like, I reacted exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to make a reaction video, but there are several elements to the video and other cinematics that have come out that I think people have been glossing over. So what I would like to do is kind of a thematic breakdown of, pay attention to this piece and how this feeds back into this and the other thing. And I really want to kind of take the videos and break them down and make sure that people look and listen to the things that they should be listening, because it's about the sound design, the writing, the voice acting, and how it all comes together and everything. I want to make sure that people aren't going, oh my God, look at the level of detail this is. It's like, yeah, that's fine, but also look at this.
Right.
And people are like, I gotta think and do this. They should make a movie. It's like, yes, they probably should, but how long did it take them to make this video? Because if it takes 4 months to make a 3-minute video, how long do you think it's going to make a 90-minute movie? Right. It's like, anyway, so that's, hopefully I'll get that done soon. I've got to figure out how to put it together. So,
okay. That's cool, though. That's cool. Well, I look forward to seeing and hearing more about that. And, of course, you will see Tren back here on Saturday, as he said, for D&D Curse of Strahd, as Infinity and Beyond deals with the aftermath of a windmill filled with hags. So we'll see how that
And
all
now
works
we're
out.
level 4.
And now, that's right. And now you're level 4. So I'm looking forward to that, but good times. But a lot of fun today with everyone. So thank you all to the wonderful players. Thank you to Amal, who is now left. Thank you to Terry. Thank you to Will, who will be back with us soon. And thank you, of course, to Tren. Great stuff, everyone. And I will see all of you wonderful people in the various places that I mentioned soon. Bye-bye for now. Chat, we send some love to the players. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Okay. So, that is going to do it for that. And give me just 1 second here. Lovely. Okay. Now, a couple things that we need to take care of. First of all, I'm going to be over on GOG, and I'm going to be over there. There we go. I'm going to be over on GOG in about 50 minutes or so as I'm playing, ironically for the time, Thronebreaker. And we're going to be trying to break some thrones ourselves out here. That's what's happening over the next few hours here. Couple things before we do this. Now, we're about to have our final vote. I'm about to mention my final vote for the Chat Chosen Game of the Month. But a much more important vote than that vote is this one that you see right there, that vote411.org. That is the most important thing because you need to have voted. If you haven't done so already and you live in the United States, go vote because now is the time. This is arguably the most important. I don't think it's actually arguable that this is the most important election of my lifetime. And as you were all fond of occasionally reminding me, I've lived for a while. So it is important that you folks go and do this. Seriously, if you don't use your vote, they will use it. They will use that vote against you if you don't. And so you need to make sure that you are getting out there and voting. If you haven't done so already, and if you live in the United States, please make sure you do that. You can check out more by looking at vote411.org. That will give you information about your local polling place and all that kind of stuff. If you have same-day registration, all that business, but you need to make sure that you do it as soon as possible because today's the day. So after today, it's not going to matter if tomorrow you're like, oh, I meant to. You need to do it right now. So, and it is indeed 15:11. That's right, DeRoyan. So it's 3:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here over here. So vote411.org. The second thing is, and I'm going to make more of an official announcement about this. I talked about this already on Twitter. I'm going to make more of an official announcement about this coming up. A week from this Saturday, I'm going to be doing the official release party, the first official virtual release party for this album. This is my band's third album, The Road 5 Years Later. This was done by the inestimable, just unbelievably amazing Rock God, was the one who actually designed this. So you can see the inside here, right? And then you got the disc, and then you got the, and then inside the disc, you got that going on. Yeah. So I'm very proud of this album. In fact, we're actually looking for places to submit it for review and things like that. We're proud of how this came out. And it's called 5 Years Later because it feels like it took that long to actually finish the damn thing. But we finally got it done. It took us a while, but finally we finished it. So this is going to be available, and I want to post right now for all of you right here. That is the current site for The Road. Now, this is for The Road and for that particular album. Now, this is going to be available in many, many different streaming areas. It's going to be available on iTunes, on Google Play, I think on YouTube Music, on Rhapsody, which I think is Napster now, on Spotify. So it's going to be available on all of those places. And it's also going to be available for physical purchase as well. You'll be able to get it from me. You'll also be able to get it from CD Baby, which is the people that have done the distribution for our last two albums as well. Some of those things, though, we literally just went live yesterday, and so today was the first day that it could start showing up on streaming services. So it will take a little while to show up in some of these other places. It will propagate to iTunes and all of them, but it may take a while. It may not be here today, tomorrow, or the next couple of days, but within the next week or so, it should be available, and within the next week or so, they should have the physical copies available, which they will then be able to sell to you directly as well. And as I said, I will be able to have them to sell also. So I'll be doing a release for this, as I said, on the 17th, I believe, which is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so a week from this Saturday. So is when I'm going to be having this. But I've been talking about this for a long time, and finally it's finished. And it took us long enough, but we did it, damn it. So I am very excited about it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how people receive it. I hope they enjoyed it and all that. So I wanted to mention that. Now, last thing, of course, that we have to do for today is that next game. And that is our final vote here on the Chat Chosen Game of the Month. This is not as important a vote, but it is still a vote. So go ahead and get your vote in if you have not already done so, if you have not already voted. Right now it's between Spider-Man, PS4, What Remains of Edith Finch, and Wild Arms, I should say. ACF, I don't remember what that is, Wild Arms something. Right now, Spider-Man is leading 11-6 to 7, so now is the time to get in the votes. I will play this game next Tuesday. So next Tuesday, I'm going to be playing this Chat Chosen Game of the Month. Then the week after that, we'll be back to Adventures of Middle-earth. And then the week after that, will be Terry and I doing the Sagar the Barbarian. Probably the conclusion of that book, I suspect, will be happening the Tuesday after that. So that's what we've got on the docket. And I'm excited about it. It looks like a good sort of month worth of streaming that we've got going on. So that is going to be exciting. Otherwise, I'll be back on with Thronebreaker today at 4 p.m. Eastern, so about 45 minutes from now. But again, I already voted. You can see right there. I am already ready to go. I've already voted. If you haven't done it, go vote. It's more important than watching me. It's more important than watching anything. More important than almost anything you're going to do today, other than commit yourself again to loving your family and friends and caring about the people around you. Other than that, this is the most important thing, because this is actually part of that care. It's part about caring for your fellow citizens and the people around you. So please make sure you do that, because it does make a big difference. So please get that vote. Go out and vote as soon as you can. All right, we're going to last call this here. Last call it. So, and all these are good games, and I'm happy to play any of them. Last call. Last call. Going once. Going twice. And gone. And Spider-Man wins. Okay, Spider-Man wins. That's cool, actually. I was looking forward to giving that a try anyway. So Spider-Man for the PS4 has won. We will be doing that next week. I also want to mention that I talked about playing... playing Bard's Tale 4 now that I've finished with Toonstruck. I still want to wrap up Firewatch, but I think after I wrap up Firewatch, what I may end up doing instead is playing Underworld Ascendant, because I am getting that game courtesy of Brahms, because he's an awesome person. I'm getting Underworld Ascendant, which is releasing on the 15th, which is next Thursday. So I believe the next time I'm playing a video game is actually going to be after that point. So I will probably try Underworld Ascendant. I really hope it's good. If it's not, then I'm going to go into Bard's Tale. But otherwise, I really hope Underworld Ascendant is good. I'm really excited and I'm really hoping for the best, because like the studio in this game, Ultima Underworld was one of the most important games in my development as a gamer ever. So I really want this to be good, but we'll see. That's exactly right, Terry. Yeah, exactly. It is that important, because it's not just about America, right? It's about the direction of the world, because of the sort of outsized importance that our country plays in the world's sort of affairs. And so as a consequence of that, we have to make sure that we do it right here. It's going to be important. So key thing is to go vote and get us out there. And tonight is going to be the big one. After I finish with Thronebreaker, I'm going to watch results and returns. And tonight's going to be big, folks. But I am cautiously, knock on wood, I'm cautiously optimistic. And it's all about turnout. It's all about getting people out there and doing the vote that they need to do. And so if you haven't done so, do it. If you do not use your voice, others will use it for you. They will interpret your voice as being silent. And that can't happen. So I talked about this with my students yesterday and last week, and I've talked about it with you folks for months, and I talked about it with folks on Twitter. I've been doing this thing where I said like 100, whatever. I think I started with 250 days or something to the election day, and then I did every 10 days, and then I dropped it to every 5 days, and then for the last 5 days it was every single day, and then today was the election day, the hammer blow of the resistance. Make every day count, and then today make it count. So now is the time to make it count, make it happen, because it's important. Yeah, I saw that. That's fine, Brahms. That's okay. It's too bad that they made you do that. That's annoying. But did you like complain to them and say, why can't I change? I mean, again, it's really not a big deal, but either way, I'm fine with that. Like, that's not a big deal. So, okay. But that is going to do it for me for today. We will have Spider-Man PS4 coming to you next week. And this Friday, by the way, Esper Genesis is up in the air a little bit, because I forgot that on Friday I have my daughter has this thing called Barn Dance that she's going to. And the barn dance is so the barn dance is basically this thing that we do every year, that like they go and they basically have this big like square dance thing, and it's to raise money for a school, and it's this coming Friday. So my guess is that Esper Genesis is actually not likely to happen on Friday, but I need to find out from people as well about doing this. So yeah, so that's the situation that we're dealing with. So anyway, yeah. That's the situation that we've got, but we will talk more about that, as I said, as time goes on. So barns can't dance. It's true. It's true. So we will see. Anyway, but that is going to do it for me. So I don't know what's going on with Friday, but Saturday is definitely Curse of Strahd. And again, stay tuned and we'll let you know about what's happening as far as the other games and things that we've got on the schedule. Right now, though, I'm going to get on out of here in about 40 minutes. I will be back over at GOG, going along with Thronebreaker as I continue my playthrough of that game and Pen and Pixels. And I believe it's actually episode 150 of Pen and Pixels today. So that's a milestone episode, 150 episodes. So 150 today of Pen and Pixels over at GOG. So we're not going to do a raid. I hope I will see any of you all over there, but that would be awesome. So that will make that happen. I want to thank everyone for making this an awesome stream today. Thank you to Terry Tunes for her wonderful playing today. Thank you, Terry. Thank you as well to Terry for subbing. Thank you also to Brahms, Nonstop, and Trendane for subbing. And thank you also to Trendane for being a wonderful player. Thank you to everybody who subbed. Thank you to all of you who support the Patreon as well. And again, don't forget, please support the Patreon with !ArvTrayon. Please sub to the channel. Both of those are part of the financial backbone of this, and they really do make a difference. So any support we can give makes a big difference. Thank you, thank you. Thank you to Apricot Droop Fruit. Thank you to Beautiful Bear. Thank you to Commander Root. Thank you to Cujo. Thank you to DeRoyne. Thank you to AKEG. Thank you to Electrical Skateboard. Thank you to Incels Ruin Everything. That's a great name and is true. Thank you to Jagtress. Thank you to Costas. Thank you to Mr. Mano, Positivity Bot, PKD Fan. Thank you to Poltergeist Zero, Questionable Results, Skinny Seahorse, Slow Cool, You Christensen, Uncle Elias, VNK, and Zentari. Thank you as well to Amal for doing her wonderful job playing as well. Oh, my pleasure, Terry. Thank you. I'm happy to do it because you guys are such great players. So thank you, thank you. So thanks everyone. Make sure that you check out the band, support the stream in all the ways that you know what to do, spread the word about this show, and I'll see you over 4 p.m. in GOG for Pen and Pixels and for Thronebreaker, and most of all, go vote, people. Again, go vote. You, all of you, vote. I'm watching you. And I will see all of you wonderful people in about 40 minutes over at Pen and Pixels. Until then, everyone be good to each other. See you in a bit.